losing weight.
Good afternoon. The meeting will now come to order. Hello, I'm Donna Savigny, President of the Board of Education. I would like to welcome you to the September 11th, 2019 board meeting. In keeping with the board's commitment to open communication with the community, this meeting is being streamed live on the CCPS website at www.carrollk12.org and broadcast live on Channel 21. We are also recording this meeting so that it can be accessed on demand on our website and broadcast throughout the month on Channel 21. We would like to remind you that because this is a live broadcast, anyone who participates in the meeting needs to use the microphone. Later in the meeting, time will be provided for citizens to address the board regarding topics on the agenda or other items of concern, except for items relating to personnel. Persons wishing to address the board should fill out a blue card located on the table near the entrance to this room and pass it to the superintendent or the board president prior to the conclusion of the scheduled citizen participation. And before I ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to recognize that today is indeed the 18th anniversary of September 11th. And I would like to say that we never want to forget the sacrifices of those who were killed and recognize those who survived and honor the sacrifices of the first responders and the recovery workers. So please keep this in mind as we do our moment of silence shortly. Thank you very much. And with that, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, and then the national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ran above bursting air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much. And Superintendent Lockhart, I would just like to say I love that.
The students are incredibly talented. That's certainly one display of that, and a great rendition of our national anthem. Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. Board members, I need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kyler. Board members, any comments or questions or revisions? No? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the approval of the minutes. Board members, I need a motion for the approval of the minutes for August 14th, 2019.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia. Second by Dr. Dorsey. Board members, any comments? No? Okay, before I call for the vote, I will say that I am abstaining from this vote because I was not present for that last board meeting. So with that said, I call for the vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously by a vote of 4-0 with 1 abstention. Okay. And with that, we will move on to the student government reports.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace Johnson. I'm a junior at Liberty High School and I'm the CCSGA president for the 2019-2020 school year. This summer, on the 28th of August, CCSGA hosted our annual advanced retreat at Camp Hoshua from 9 to 1:30. While there, 36 student representatives from across the county participated in icebreakers, various workshops, and activities led by the wonderful outdoor school staff, and started planning for the busy upcoming year ahead. I also taught a workshop on leadership styles, and I think that overall the day was a success. The biggest item that we planned for that day was the upcoming Fall Leadership Summit that will be hosted at Carroll Community College on September 27th from 9 to 1:15, and we will have an officer team meeting in 2 days to make further plans for the event. This summit will replace our September General Assembly meeting this year, and at the summit we plan to have 400 students in attendance from all over the county from diverse backgrounds representing various student groups in their school. We really want this to be an inclusive event and not just student government members. The theme for the day is leadership, teamwork, and unity. And we will be running various workshops with similar themes for both middle and high school representatives, and we are hoping that the student leaders in attendance will be able to share what they learn and bring it back to their home schools. We will also have guest speaker Carlos Ojeda. He is a Hispanic, learning disabled, and legally deaf motivational speaker who some of us that attended convention in Ocean City this past year had the pleasure of hearing speak. He will be reinforcing the themes of leadership, teamwork, and unity in both his keynote speech and small breakout sessions with middle and high school students. We're very excited to have him at this event, and it will be a very busy day to say the least, but CCSGA is looking forward to kicking off the school year and getting to work. Thank you for allowing me to share our progress with you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Ms. Johnson, thank you very much for that report, and we look forward to future reports from you. Okay. So then we will move on to public participation. Ms. Herbert.
Here we go. To have an orderly presentation of comments by the public, the following guidelines apply. Number 1, citizen participation is not intended to be a question and answer period. However, if citizens have specific questions, the superintendent will assign a staff member to make contact during the board meetings to arrange a time to respond to the question. Number 2, the superintendent board reserves the right to correct misinformation presented as factual after the conclusion of the citizen participation period. Number 3, statements to the board should relate to a recent agenda item, an agenda item that is expected to appear in the near future, or a matter of general policy over which the board has authority, personnel matters, pending appeals, the actions of statements of individual staffs, or items related to employee negotiations are not appropriate topics and may not be discussed. Number 4, it is the intent of the board to allow all citizens an opportunity to speak. Therefore, the board has scheduled time on the agenda for citizen participation. The board reserves the right to limit the number of speakers on a particular topic so that all topics may be addressed. If 30 minutes has passed and there are citizens who have not addressed the board, additional time may be allotted later in the meeting. Number 5, comments are limited to 3 minutes or less. When the allotted time expires, the speaker is permitted to complete a sentence and return to the audience. The public may not display signs or posters during the board meetings. The public, in lieu of signs, or if you are unable to complete your comments in the allotted time, individuals are encouraged to submit remarks to the board in writing. And our first and only person tonight is Catherine Henn. Ms. Henn?
Hi, I'm Catherine Henn, a kindergarten teacher at Manchester Elementary School. Welcome back. Ms. Battaglia, I hope things are good. No tears, okay. So I'm here tonight to say thank you. Because as a kindergarten teacher, I think it's very important that I model what I teach my children. And I teach my children to show gratitude. And I want to say thank you to Miss Judy Jones. Because this August, I had the opportunity to attend her cultural expo, and it was fabulous. A few years ago, we had a memorandum of understanding, and we worked with CCPS and CCEA, and we talked about professional development. Everything we talked about, she provided at that cultural expo. It was diverse. It was entertaining, it was engaging, it was educational. She had people from outside of Carroll County, which was the first time in 18 years that I have gone to a professional development where I was not being trained by my colleague. And to me, that was very important, that we get some outside people and ideas and presentations to our staff. So I don't know how it could possibly work, but I would highly encourage that her cultural expo become a part of our back-to-school professional development for all teachers, all assistants, all bus drivers, all cafeteria workers, anybody who gets a paycheck from Carroll County Public Schools. So I just want to say publicly, thank you, Ms. Jones. It was outstanding. And welcome back.
Thank you, Ms. Henn.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other blue cards in the room at the moment? No? Okay, great. Then we will move on to employee groups.
Happy new school year. Good evening, Superintendent Lockhart, members of the Board of Education, and Commissioner Weaver. I'm Teresa Basler-McCullough, President of the Carroll County Education Association, who represents the dedicated, hardworking teachers, counselors, RNs, speech and language providers, OTs, PTs, who were an integral part of Park's most recent success. We are back in business. As usual, our educators have created and prepared materials to enhance their teaching environment and instruction. CCA was busy this summer. We sent members to the NEA Convention, Summer Learning Conference, Racial Justice Workshop, NEA Leaders for Just School Training, Go Team Training, and Uniserve Academy. CCEA took an active role at New Teacher Orientation and the Culture Expo, and I couldn't agree with Mrs. Henn more. CCEA will be joining NEA again this year in a national action to wear red every Wednesday. We're raising our voices to protect public schools. It's not just Red for Ed for public education, it's Red for Ed for our nation. To support every student, we're wearing Red for Ed, and this is an open invitation to the entire Carroll County school system and community to participate. The first opportunity we can rock a room with red is the upcoming Community Forum next Tuesday, September 17th, 7 o'clock in the cafeteria of Sykesville Middle School. I attended last week's work session and joint Board of Education, Board of County Commissioners meetings. Out of those meetings, I heard a need for funding for school construction, staffing, employee salaries, and more. It's time to update the state funding levels and the formula to fully implement the blueprint for Maryland's future. If you feel it is essential for our school system to increase behavior specialists, special education teachers, school psychologists, academic specialists, paraprofessionals, assistants, and provide a living wage for our support staff, then attend the forum so we can let our elected state officials know our funding needs that our educators, schools, and students deserve. Since it's a forum, the format will be a short informational segment and then a question-answer period with a panel speaking to the posed questions from the audience. It is not a D or R, blue or red, left or right venture. It's a call for local funding from our state. Lastly, a tremendous shout out to our custodians, clericals, administrators, and educators for their dedication and hard work in setting the stage for another great year. Here's to wishing our entire school system a most productive and successful school year. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Lockard, board members, Commissioner Weaver. My name is Diane Deal, and I am the president of CASE, representing Secretary Clerical, LPNs, and instructional assistants. CASE wants to recognize and thank our hardworking, devoted Secretary Clerical, LPNs, and instructional assistants. They made sure that the 2019-2020 school year started off successfully for our students by making sure all students were assigned buses, got off on those buses, answered concerns, questions from parents, made sure teachers had the needed supplies in their classrooms and offices, assisted teachers with setting up those classrooms and bulletin boards, assisted students with finding their classes, making sure students are on task in their classrooms, and understanding the expectations of their teachers, logging in medicines, making sure students are taking those medicines as directed, keeping our hallways and buildings safe, and monitoring incoming visitors, and I could go on and on and on. Along with doing all of this, they are the only bargaining unit in Carroll County Public Schools that started this school year without a settled contract or a raise. For their dedication, professionalism, and care for our students, we say thank you. And by now, our board members and commissioners should have received an invitation to attend the 2019 Instructional Assistant in-Service. CCPS, in conjunction with CASE, hosts this professional development each year. This year, it is being held at Westminster High School on October 1st. Some of you have already said yes, and thank you for your response. The rest of you, we look forward to hearing from and hope you can make this very important event. Thank you.
Thank you. And board members, we do have an additional blue card that came in. Since we're still in the public participation section of the meeting, I'd like to propose that we don't make those folks wait until later in the meeting and we just circle back and hit them right now. Everyone okay with that? Okay, great. But I do believe that we have several students that might want to speak, but only one card. Are there multiple students?
It's two students that want to speak. Okay, first we'll have Caitlin Wiley. Okay.
Okay. There are many ways to bring your own device rule in check without abolishing phones for good. There is the grandfathered process, which is a provision in which an old rule continues to apply to some existing situations when a new rule will apply all future cases. So it should be only applied to the freshman class, which could help maybe put things in order, because right now a lot of our schools are going to really bad places. A lot of our kids are stressed, and I'm stressed, and I am dealing with a lot. I have anxiety, I have ADHD, and a lot of the kids have ADHD and anxiety and are undiagnosed. And a lot of us use music to help us, and now we can't use it during our study hall times, we can't use it during our times when we're done class, or during times when we can just open a book and read, or we're writing an essay. Our teachers won't allow us. And it's hard for us because we cannot block out other students and everything else. Like, I'm already seeing my grades plummet because I can't listen to music, because that's what helps me focus. And I think that we should at least be more lenient on that to help other kids, because a lot of kids have these issues, and I see everybody else struggling already. Yes, kids use their phones for bad, but we can still fix that. You can give the green passes if you see people on their social media or texting, but you should, if you see them on music when they're allowed to, that should be allowed, because we should have the right to be able to do that, because many studies do show that kids work better with music, especially ADHD and anxiety kids. And it is really hard. It's not even the third week of school, and it does say a lot. I'm not saying that you should kill the bring your own device policy. I'm just saying that you should be more lenient to us, because in the end, with your help, we could succeed and everybody could succeed. And and without like teachers complain about like AirPods and whatnot, I'm thinking that the school should only allow like headphones with wires and stuff like that, so if kids don't get caught with like their headphones in, so then people can listen to music when they're allowed to without getting in trouble. It make it easier for the kids who have struggles like me, because a lot of the kids in our school do. Like, I know half the people do. And with one testimony I know, this is one from a girl in my class. The new rules at Century have made a huge impact on my life. My mom is in and out of the hospital, and now I can't even look at my phone to see if she's okay or when she texts me. And it stresses me out. I'm not really able to pay attention all the time because of the thought that she might be back there, and I don't know about it. I also have really bad ADHD, and I'm not able to listen to music while doing independent work. It makes it hard to concentrate because music helps me pay attention to what I am doing at that point in time. The new rules have done nothing positive at all.
Thank you. You can finish your thought.
And that was it.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and then we,
Sorry, Ms.
Go ahead.
Ms. Wiley, was it?
Yes.
Wiley? I just want to make a reference. We do say that we can address folks in the public participation. We did recently change the BYOD policy, but we've gotten similar comments or emails from other students. But I think there may be some confusion over implementation of the policy because we didn't change anything in the BYOD policy at the high school level. Is that correct?
It's still teacher discretion for use of devices. Absolutely hear what you're saying and appreciate that. And I'm going to ask Mr. King, our high school director, to take a minute to talk with you outside after the comments. So I do appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Just on that note, I know at Manchester Valley, there's become a hard line against phone use at all, period, just in general. The new rules have been taken as phones are pretty much not allowed except for strict instructional use. So something like music is definitely not allowed at Man Valley anymore. So I'd just like to make that note.
Okay, I'm really glad that the students are bringing this up because it seems like we may need to circle back on it.
We'll want to clarify that for sure because we kept the same hallway and change of class and lunchtime and those things from the existing policy at the high school level and teacher discretion in the classroom. So we'll certainly clarify that.
Excellent.
and next we have Donovan Villegas.
First, I'd like to thank the board for allowing us to speak. I know we didn't submit our blue slip beforehand, so I really appreciate that. What you just said is pretty much all I wanted to hear, just because it is a hardline stance. We have a slip that if the phone's even seen on your desk, then you're given the slip and you're sent to the office. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I did see a email that I believe somebody from Manchester Valley sent to somebody on the board. I'm not sure who, I apologize. But it did say that the stance on the high school policy has not changed, but certainly the implementation of it has. And the words have been taken out of my mouth. I'm a little deflated. My argument was shot down before my eyes. But I do appreciate the acknowledgement of such a hardline stance, how it affects the students. I actually have two petitions here. One that I started is in paper. It was in paper. It has 73 signatures, and we had another one that Caitlin started at Century that garnered, I believe, 409 signatures last time I checked, and we have that printed out here. These are actually printed by her. My computer died before when I was trying to print it, so I actually had my phone here with my argument on it, and I think I was going to be coy and say, look, but again. But yeah, I guess now my request would just be a clarification to the schools as to the how it should be implemented or how much of a stance should be taken against it. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Villegas, thank you very much. And if you'd like to leave that information, like we love to hear from the students, and we really appreciate you coming tonight, and we'd like to see the materials that you have.
Where would you like me to hand it in?
Right behind
Right
you.
behind you. Thank you very much. Okay, before moving on, were there any other employee groups that would like to speak this evening? Yeah. Okay, then we will move on to board member and superintendent updates. Board members, your activities and correspondence. Ms. Herbert.
Thank you for allowing me to go first because I know Miss Whitney Warner has somewhere else to go. We have some special guests here tonight, and I would like Madeline Calherd to stand up, please, and her parents, Sean and Carly Calherd. And thank you for coming. And Madeline's one of the stars. And then Hannah Haynes, please stand. And her parents, Mike and Jen Haynes, please stand. And then I have Ava Stonecipher. And parents are Vince and Lauren Stonecipher. And thank you, grandparents, I do believe, that are also here. These are the stars of my little video that we had the other month. And they have promised me that they are going to participate in next year's talent activity at Westminster Elementary. And I would also like the principal to stand up and thank them as she's taking pictures. I would like Whitney Warner to stand up, and so proud of these young ladies because this really did touch me, and I think it's a great way to start the year. Take it away, Miss Brenda.
It's okay to be different by Todd Parr. It's okay to be missing a tooth, or 2, or 3. It's okay to need some help. It's okay to have a different nose. It's okay to be a different color. It's okay to have no hair. It's okay to have big ears. It's okay to have wheels. It's okay to be small, medium, large, extra large. It's okay to have glasses. I feel tired, my face better. It's okay to talk about your feelings. It's okay to eat macaroni and cheese in bathtub. It's okay to say no to bad things. It's okay to come from a different place. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be embarrassed. First. Second. It's okay to come in last. La 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 la. It's okay to dance by yourself. It's okay to have a pet word. It's okay to be proud of yourself. It's okay to have different moms. It's okay to have different dads. It's okay to be adopted. It's okay to have invisible friends. It's okay to have different kinds of friends. It's okay to do something nice for someone. It's okay to lose a mitten. It's okay to get mad. It's okay to make a wish. It's okay to be different. You are special. And important just because of being who you are.
I want to thank you girls so much. And some of you have... Thank you so much. And some of you have more teeth than you did last time. And that's it. So thank you, and you don't have to stay for the rest, but thank you so much.
Great
I really
job,
appreciate
Carroll.
it. Thank you. And I'll be coming to see you again.
Ms.
I
Taggart.
can kind of segue into that. It's a nice segue. So real quick, September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and yesterday was actually Suicide Prevention Day. And I just want anyone to know I am always a phone call away. And as we speak, a friend of mine is burying her husband due to suicide. So anybody at any time, I am a phone call away, and I think any of us are a phone call away if you ever need someone to talk to and just be there for you. And we promise to just listen. So it's okay to not be okay, but always feel free to reach out. There's always all kinds of resources. So activities, I attended the new teacher orientation. The Culture Expo was amazing, and I had a wonderful time there. I participated in the community resource event at the Westminster City Park. Again, lots of resources available for families just to get any information they can. And I got to sit in the dunking booth, and I got dunked quite a few times, and it was very, very cold. And stopped by and supported the Cops on the Roof at Dunkin' Donuts as well. And with my daughter being in high school, I'm now part of the high school culture and been going to football games, so that's been fun.
Thank you, Ms. Pataglia. Mr. Kyler?
Hi. And not a lot of major activities this month, but we did have our joint meeting with the Carroll County Commissioners, which we're having quarterly. And I have to say, when you start dealing with them, they're not that bad.
Thank you.
Mutual. My wife had her 50th high school reunion, which was interesting, and a lot of people there. They were always an active class, a lot of people there. And a little bit to segue off of Tara. And I know we're getting older, but probably over 10% of the class is no longer with us, and they did a table display with a photo of each one, and that was very, very touching. So for the young ones, and some of them already left, live it while you can. Went to Hair When Still Kills presentation in North Carroll Library, and that was great. Wasn't a big crowd, but that almost made it better. There were 3 or 4 people in the audience who were recovering either alcoholics or addicts, and they ended up speaking, and we had good conversations, so that was a great event. On a family side, other than my wife's high school reunion, I got to go to Denver and see 2 grandkids. I got to go to Florida to see 2 grandkids at a football game, and I do have 2 local grandkids, and like the ones that spoke tonight, my elementary granddaughter looked at me very seriously at dinner and said, "Pop, I need to talk to you. My classmates have gotten together and there's something we want." And I'm thinking, what is this? She said, "At elementary school with all our desks, why can't we have recliners?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, tell your friends the Board of Education meetings are all televised. Watch that, and when they see all of us in here in recliners, then maybe we'll consider it." Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kyler. Dr. Dorsey?
Okay, on August 30th, I was able to attend the health fair for international students and families. That was a part of Access Carroll, and some of our staff members, certainly our EL staff and members also from the equity department. But again, it was just very good to have that kind of opportunity available for our international families to make sure that the students were getting prepared and ready with their health records to start school. Prior to day 1, I sent greetings to the principals of my ambassador schools and wished them certainly a productive opening to the new year. And on day 1, September 3rd, where else did I want to be but in a school? It was my privilege to visit each of my ambassador schools on this first day. I started my day at Winters Mill and left Winters Mill, went to Robert Moton, Cranberry Station, William Winchester, Northwest Middle, Mount Airy Elementary, and Sykesville Middle. And again, it was just very rewarding to see and feel the excitement of the first day of school. For those who've been involved in a school, you know that there's nothing like the first day. So the excitement was evident at all levels, elementary, middle, and high. And as the students were entering the buildings and going throughout their classrooms, I just saw them looking very prepared and ready to learn. And I just thought, boy, what a testament to the parents and our community for sending their children to school prepared and ready to learn. And as I also was a part of those school settings, I was just very thankful to all of the staff members, regardless of what position they found themselves in. Everybody was certainly working on behalf of our students. So again, kudos to all of our school staff, Dr. Lockard, and our entire central office staff members, and for everyone involved in preparing for a successful school year. So for the ones that I hadn't wished a happy year or two earlier, I would like to wish all students and staff a rewarding school year. And on September 4th, I was able to participate in the retreat and work sessions with fellow board members, and on the 5th, participated in the joint meeting with with my fellow board members and the commissioners. So that is my report for this month.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dorsey. Mr. Klingenberg.
So I just want to reiterate something Grace said. This Fall Leadership Summit it looks to be fantastic. We have probably about 25 kids from all the high schools and middle schools coming to Carroll Community College, and it should be a really inclusive and great event. And so I just want to plug that one more time, and it's going to be a great event.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say a couple of, lots of back-to-school activities, but I did have the privilege of attending the back-to-school and orientation nights at Shiloh. Just wanted to give a shout-out to Mr. Watkins, who did an amazing job in his first year at Shiloh. Certainly not his first year as principal, but at Shiloh. He had a pretty new staff at Shiloh, so kudos to all the administrative staff and educators there for just having a great back-to-school night. And I know that happens at most schools around the district, and just kudos to everyone for making this transition back into the new school year so seamless, and a lot of energy coming out, especially after the park and the MCAP results were released, basically, that Carroll is on top of the rankings in the state, and that was actually the subject of our discussions at the joint meeting with the commissioners. And so I do want to thank the commissioners for a very productive meeting between our two groups. I think we had really good conversations on a lot of meaty topics, and just want to say that we hope that it comes through, that, commissioners, when you invest in us, we have the results. And so I think that a lot of that is due to the partnership and the continued productive discussions that we're having. So thank you so much for that.
A lot of good information, particularly your part on the opioid crisis and what heroin still kills, what the school system is doing. That was amazing. I'm glad that information got out to everybody. We covered a lot of topics, but that was a highlight. Not every commissioner has already said to me they couldn't believe what the school system is doing. So keep it up.
Thank you for that feedback, Commissioner Weaver. And with that, I just want to say that we've had lots of emails and things from parents that things have seemed to go very well for the opening of the school year, and we're excited to hear about that. And with that, we'll hand it over to Dr. Locker.
Thank you very much, President Svig. Good evening, everybody. A couple of announcements and celebrations. I'd like to begin by congratulating Brandy Jason. Brandy's an instrumental music teacher at Liberty High School. She is our Carroll County Teacher of the Year, and recently she was selected as one of 7 finalists for the Maryland Teacher of the Year. It was a pleasure for me and several other staff members to surprise visit Brandy last week at Liberty Elementary. We shared that great news with Brandy, the students, and staff members. It was a really nice way to kick off the new year. Brandy has tremendous accomplishments, and we heard a lot about those when we recognized her as Carroll County's Teacher of the Year. She's going to be going through a selection process now for the Maryland Teacher of the Year. That winner will be announced at the gala that the State Department has on Friday, October 25th. So we won't have to wait too long. And I'll remind everybody, this is the 3rd consecutive year that Carroll County Public Schools has had a Teacher of the Year finalist. So I think 3rd time's a charm.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, they were all very deserving, for sure. I also like to acknowledge the great work of Judy Jones and her team for the Culture Expo. At the Culture Expo, we recognized 2 winners of Education That's Multicultural Awards. First, I want to congratulate Catherine Berling, Media Specialist and ETM Liaison at Tawnytown Elementary School. Catherine received the ETM Teacher of the Year Award. She's the chairperson of the school's 12-member ETM committee. She's been a member of the Carroll One Book organization for 2 years and created an annotated list of multicultural children's books to add to the Media Center collection there at Tawnytown. So congratulations to Catherine. We also recognized Michael Brown. Michael is the principal of Winters Mill High School. Michael received the ETM Administrator of the Year Award. And Michael entered his position last year with a very clear vision. Cultural Differences Unite was formed early last year to give students and underrepresented groups a voice in the school. And this was a catalyst for directly addressing topics of equity and diversity and challenge students and staff to have courageous conversations. So we recognize and celebrate both Catherine and Michael for those recognitions. I'd also like to reiterate how proud I am and how proud we all should be of the excellent assessment results that we saw just a couple weeks ago with the release of the PARC data. As a school system, we achieved first place ranking in the state of Maryland for mathematics, grades 3 to 8, and Algebra 1. English language arts performance in grades 3 to 8 and English 10 ranked second in the state. Now, I will always say that our students are defined not by a single test score, nor are our teachers. And these scores and assessments are just one of many markers where Carroll County Public Schools continually demonstrates success. We will look, and you'll see a little bit later tonight, we'll start to look and break down some of this information. And we can use this information to determine overall progress, but we still have improvement to make, and we don't stop with certain percentages of students meeting certain markers. Again, we use lots of measures and know that we have room for continual growth. But I will say to you that being first or second in the state doesn't happen by accident. It happens as a result of incredibly talented teachers and staff working together, partnering with our county, policies and procedures that we put in place to support our students and their academic growth. So a shout out to Carroll County Public Schools for the incredible work that's happened there. Finally, I want to thank each and every one of our staff members. It is a Herculean effort when you think about getting everybody where they should be and in their places on that first day of school and all the build up to that. Our work doesn't stop from the last day of school last summer until we welcome our students back, and on it goes. I also had the opportunity to visit several schools over the course of this past week and a half. It's very apparent that everybody did an incredible job, and as Dr. Dorsey mentioned, you know, our community and our families getting our students ready to learn in classrooms, teaching and learning like it was kind of like we never left, right, everybody? It feels that way. So great work getting us off to a smooth start. We have a lot to be proud of in Carroll County Public Schools, and I'm really looking forward to a great year. So thank you.
And Dr. Lockhart, I would like to second all of that. That was very well said, and I think a Herculean adjective is the right way to describe it. Kudos to all of our educators, all of our staff, for it just coming off without a hitch. I don't think anybody could really have a full appreciation for how much effort goes into that looking so easy. It's not easy in the slightest, and for it to come off so well, just thank you to all of our educators and staff for making that such a successful start to the school year.
Thank you.
And Dr. Dorsey, you had an announcement that you'd like to make?
Custodial and Maintenance Personnel Recognition Day. Tuesday, September 17th is Custodial and Maintenance Personnel Recognition Day. Each and every day, these employees do whatever it takes to keep our buildings clean and well-maintained and to make our schools a safe and comfortable place to teach and to learn. So on behalf of the board, I would like to thank all of the employees in our Facilities Maintenance and Operations Department for their hard work and dedication to our schools.
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey. And with that, we will move on to the presentation section. So our one item under that section tonight is the Strategic Plan Pillar 1 update. Dr. Lockhart.
Thank you very much, President Savigny. I'm pleased to have staff join us at the table for the Strategic Plan Pillar 1 update. The presentation is going to share outcomes of some of the targets that we had set, data, also include scores in English, language arts, and mathematics that we just kind of referenced in my comments, and we're excited to share the first of many plan reports. We will also be coming back in January with an updated report on Pillar 1, so this is the first of a couple this year. So with that, Ms. McCausland.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Lockhart, members of the board, Commissioner Weaver. I'm joined by Pam Mesta, Dr. Kendra Hart, and Judy Jones to provide an update to the strategic plan, Pillar 1, providing multiple pathway opportunities for student success. Just as an overview, Pillar 1 focuses on providing multiple pathway opportunities for CCPS student success. Our objectives are students exiting CCPS, career, college, and community ready, improving the proficiency levels of all student groups in ELA and mathematics, and providing access to a well-rounded, varied, and rigorous curriculum. Data points we'll be covering this evening include CBA and SRI, Algebra 1, participation in CTE programs or courses, honors courses, and AP transcripted courses, and MCAP scores.
And I have the pleasure to begin with the first set of scores. And just to clarify, where you see the green, that means we approved from the baseline score. And where you see a star, that means we also met the target. So sometimes you may see one without the other, but hopefully I explained that clear enough. So our first focus area is the percentage of students who are reading on grade level as measured by local assessments by the end of grade 3. The two assessments we used were the CBA, which is the Comprehensive Benchmark Assessment, and that assessment is an instrument used to identify instructional and independent reading levels of students. The second was the Scholastic Reading Inventory, and that assessment measures reading comprehension. And as you can see, we have our baseline scores, and not only did we meet the target, we also grew and increased beyond the baseline. So we're really excited and proud of that.
Dr. Hart, the CBA scores, these are just for grade 3, is that correct?
That is just for the end of grade 3. Yes, absolutely. So 64% of the students scored 80% or better. Okay. I think it wanted to change on me. The second slide I'm going to share with you is the percentage of students who participate and complete Algebra 1 by the end of grade 8. And so in order to get credit in this area, you had to actually pass the course and pass the PARCC score. And so our baseline, we started with 18.8%. Our target was 20%, and we ended up with 23.4%. And so you see that in green, and it also has the star. And so that, again, was a participation goal. So that's something that we're going to go back and review. Well, Mary Swack will go back and review, and I'm sure she will be raising that target because I know it's a progression, but we celebrate that we already made that score. Now, please keep in mind that is not every 8th grader. That is the 8th grade students that participated in Algebra 1.
Okay, so that's not 23.4% of 8th graders. It's 23.4% of 8th graders who took Algebra 1.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's...
So, to restate the question, please.
Okay.
Yes. Can you go back to that slide?
So of the students who took 8th grade algebra, we had close to 100% pass
That's
rate
correct.
on the...
Yes, so what that slide's indicating right there is that we started off with a baseline measure of 18.8% of our students were enrolled in Algebra 1 in 8th grade.
Right.
We had a target of getting to 20%. Where Dr. Hart was referring to is that the way that the actual master or the strategic plan is written right now was specific to actual enrollment. So in other words, what we started to see was that that's fine. We have 23.4% of our students passing that were enrolled in Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So in other words, yes, nearly 25% of our students in 8th grade took Algebra 1 and passed it.
Much better answer.
Right. And so what we're also saying there is that where we got caught up is that the way that the actual goal was written and the strategic plan needs to be revised. And what Dr. Hart was saying is that when we sit down in the spring, when we revise the actual goal, we need to go ahead and put in not only enrollment, but also passing.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So I appreciate that. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your words.
She's a numbers girl. You got to watch her. I'm telling you right now.
And thank you for the record. Ms. Herbert said she understood me. Thank you so much.
One last piece I'd like to say there is that when we're looking at all the students that took it, you are looking at the 23.4% of your 8th graders that took it passed.
Right.
So essentially all of our students that were enrolled in Algebra 1 in 8th grade passed.
Correct. Right, so that would be then part of, when we come back and look at Pillar 1 updates in January, we would be looking to revise that definition, right? Because we've already achieved the goal, and so we need, not only do we need to restate it, but we need to potentially change the goal
And
going forward.
that's in a number of areas, yes.
Okay, great.
So focus area 3 is participation of underrepresented student groups at the high school level in career and technical education programs, honors courses, and advanced placement and transcripted credit courses. And so for CTE, the focus was on underrepresented students enrolled in CTE courses. The target is the range 1% of the total high school population. And you'll see for the Hispanic special ed and FARMS populations, we did increase. And we also met for our Hispanic population in CTE. For the honors and AP transcripted, the focus was strictly on FARMS students enrolled in honors or AP transcripted courses. For the honors level courses, within 3%, again, of the total population, special education decreased by 0.1%. But in FARMS, 10.2% we increased from 9.3%, I apologize. And for AP transcripted, we increased from 6.5 to 6.9 and also met the target. Focus area 4 is improve the percentage of students scoring proficient or higher on the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program, MCAP, English and Math, grades 3 through 11, for each of the following student subgroups: white, minority, non-FARMS, FARMS, non-special education, and special education. For English, our largest gains came from our minority population. Elementary had a 9% gain, and our middle school had a 13% gain. Again, we're very proud and celebrate our accomplishments in MCAP, but we're always looking to improve everywhere we can.
Can I ask that we look at FARMS at the high school level? Because it looks like there was certainly a gain there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
10 percentage points or...
Yes.
Dr. Dorsey, do you mean in terms of refining our goal for future years? Because, or do you want to discuss what we think drove
no.
drove that increase?
Well, that might be a topic maybe for another conversation. But again, I was just really looking at the numbers and looking at the gain for the FARMS at the high school level.
And that's correct. It did increase.
Mm-hmm.
And there actually was, we had, Marsha, you probably remember, we had a work session, gosh, it might be over a year ago now, maybe a year and a half ago now, regarding PARCC results from 2 years ago and how we were looking deficient in the middle school ELA, and we had kind of focused on the writing component. Like, so after, when we started digging further and further, we realized that it was the writing portion that was really driving those low scores, and we targeted that, changed the curriculum, changed, and we saw last year that there was a significant bump in those ELA results at the middle school level, and it looks like that bump is continuing. Is that an accurate representation?
That's correct. So we're moving into our 4th year of the revised curriculum. And a lot of the focus has been on students owning their own data and teachers having a conversation, one-on-one conversations with students about their scores and their data and unpacking it and explaining it, and having, you know, a shared knowledge of what that means and how to move forward and how to better themselves, challenge themselves, work hard. It's okay to fail sometimes in order to move forward and improve in what we're doing. And so that whole focus on grit, working hard to make the improvements, has been an area of focus. The teachers have been working really hard, and the students as well, to challenge themselves to improve.
And is there, we had talked at that time a lot about the student growth indicator. There was a specific indicator that we had been discussing that was going to talk about, because, you know, you've always got different cohorts that you're looking at.
Yeah, so that's part of the report card, and again, as that comes out formally, and again, we have access to that right now that we can begin to look at it. But yeah, that is one of the measures that contribute to your overall report card score is the overall score, but also the growth opportunity or the growth that you'll see in particular students. So that is part of it. To Ms. McCausland's point in regards to the writing to affirm your thinking, that has been a huge piece that Brian has talked about specifically that he attributes to the improvement that we've seen in our ELA scores. The other piece that since I'm up here, I draw your attention to is the idea of when we're talking about our free and reduced meal students, that is, they are often found in a variety of our areas within other student populations. And predominantly, we do see a larger percentage in certain student populations, and we are seeing growth. Where we see growth there, we're seeing growth in other areas too. And that is something that I think that I attribute to the work that Pam's doing as well as Judy's doing in regards to some of our historically underserved populations. We've seen improvement, dramatic improvement in our minority across the board there if you're looking at elementary, middle, and high. I mean, and that is not by chance. That has been something that has been a focus of ours, specifically in the plan as well. So if you look at across at all instructional levels, you're seeing significant growth, 9%, 13%, 4% also. I mean, that's significant. And I think that's what you were looking at there, Dr. Dorsey, is specifically with our farms in high school. I mean, that's a considerable jump, you know, in 1 year. A lot of it's about access, right? And we've talked about that, engaging and being advocates for these students and showing that they can do it. And once we do provide that opportunity, they do.
On the next slide, you'll see our mathematics, and again, we celebrate that we are #1 in the state for mathematics for the fourth year in a row. I still wanted to add that part, the fourth year in a row. So we saw some increases in student groups with the elementary. We saw an increase in boys, Hispanic students, black students, and students that are identified as 2 or more races. Our third grade had an increase with students with IEPs. We saw a 10-point increase in third grade with EL students. We had a 6-point increase in fifth grade Hispanic students. Mr. Hicks, I just want to celebrate that Mr. Hicks, who is the elementary supervisor for mathematics, he had an exciting moment. He joined your EL teachers and his math resource teachers, and they modified some of the assessments because we wanted to make sure that there were no barriers as far as maybe the language. We wanted to make sure that the students actually understood the concepts. And with that modified assessment, we were able to find out what the students knew and did not know, and we were able to work with them throughout the school year. So that's definitely a celebration, and I just think that's a contribution to some of, just a touch of some of the things that are taking place to make sure that we are meeting the needs of students. So in the words of Mr. Hicks, those are celebrations for a minute. We do not want to forget those students that are still having difficulty, those students that we still need to figure out what do we need to do differently, what interventions we need to put in place, and what type of differentiation that needs to take place.
Dr. Hart, that's well said. I know one of the things that we want to do is we want to celebrate the successes and don't want to minimize that at all. And at the same time, I think when we look at this sheet, though, there's a lot of red on the math side. Even though we're #1 in the state, there's still a lot of places that we kind of backslid a little bit.
And thank you for mentioning that point, because MSDE also recognized that overall as a state that we saw either decrease or no significant growth, and they are taking the time to reflect and look at the assessments and see if there's something that's challenging our students, that maybe some type of barrier. We don't have the answers for that yet, but they are analyzing the assessments, maybe the questioning, but they do recognize that overall as a state, there were more school districts that the scores dropped, where we stayed within the same. We did have one drop in certain areas up to 1.9%, but overall there were no significant changes. But we were one of the more fortunate local school systems, but we have great people. I contributed to that. But overall as a state, once you get a chance to see those scores, you'll see that most of the scores went down. And that doesn't make an excuse for us, but I just want to say that that is a concern for everyone. Also, with that being said, Mary Schwack, who is our secondary supervisor, and Judy Gear, who's her coordinator, they're also analyzing their data. Mary's actually on vacation right now, so unfortunately she couldn't be here with us today, but they are trying to determine areas where they need to improve as far as our instructional pieces and how we are presenting information to students and what we need to do differently. Because we don't just want to say that our students aren't making it. We want to say, hey, let me take a look and see what we're doing instructionally. What are we providing for students, and what is it that we're not providing for students?
And I'm really glad to hear that, because I think that's one of the things that we found, right, when we were looking at ELA in the middle school, and when we did unpack those results and really dig in, we said, okay, we're deficient in the writing component, right? And we really dug into strategies that would help with that and changing the curriculum. And so I appreciate and recognize the comments that you're making about the state deteriorated as a whole, but I'm still wondering if there are things like that to be found on the math side of the house as well.
And we share your concern.
Ms. Herbert.
I did see one thing, and I can understand they need to reevaluate that, because I saw a question on that exam about math division, and there were 5 answers. But let me tell you, a lot of people got that wrong, adults, and they need to go back and look at some of their questioning, because why are we making it tricky? You know, why are we making it slick? When you do a math problem, it's either right or wrong, and don't give these children these maybe, if, maybe, kinda. You know, it's either 1 or a 2 or a 3. And I saw one of those questions and I thought, that is unfair to those students, because I read it, and let me tell you something, I went through that twice and I answered it correctly, but I could see how a lot of students would get those stinking tricky questions wrong, and that's not what it's about. How many kids can we trick? So they do need to reevaluate some of those questions. Okay, oops, okay. All right.
Thank you.
I saw it.
Agreed.
Ms.
Thank
Herbert,
you,
I've
we
been
agree with
fielding those
you.
questions for the last 10 years right now. Those
Well,
maybe.
that is not necessary. They're there to take an exam. They're already uptight to begin with. Then why are you putting them stinking tricky questions in there when it is... We're not doing trick questions. These teachers are out here trying to teach division and all this other stuff, and then they're going like, okay, we're going to shoot it out of this hip or this hip. Wrong.
This brings back good memories of staff meetings.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just kidding.
I was bad at staff meetings.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't. You made
I
good points.
Yes. So I saw it.
Ms. McCausland, can we take a quick look at the high school math results? I think it's red across the board,
Except at the bottom.
except for special education.
Special education increased at 2%.
Is that just one grade, though, for high school? Is that 10th grade?
See, that was a comment I was going to make earlier, Dr. Hart, when you were talking and you started talking about some grade level data disaggregation. And again, I know we're not at that fine point here, but that's where it really gets interesting as far as seeing, you know, how the 3rd graders were performing, the 4th graders, and students on each of the grade levels. So again, we just have the level. We don't have the specific grade levels here.
Yeah, so a lot of it, you know, it's interesting. When we started, and again, we're still doing an analysis, we're looking at these scores. But what's interesting is, and I want to bring our attention to it, and yeah, they in some cases they've dropped, but we've also increased the percentage of kids that are essentially getting, all of our students are passing 8th grade Algebra 1. Right? So what you begin to see at some school districts where you push them too fast is you'll see low proficiency levels in multiple grade levels because we've pushed those kids so quickly through. In some districts, you'll see proficiency levels of 18% in grade 8 because they've pushed nearly 50% of their students into Algebra 1. And so having conversations with, you know, Dr. Freeman Rabowski and those types of people, and this was years ago, he would always say to us, why are we pushing these kids so fast? Why? Because you're going to take his calculus when you get to UMBC. You're going to. You know, so there's a lot of things there that we need to take in consideration We're doing pretty well at 25%, and nearly, I think one student didn't pass. I think it's nearly 100% of our students pass in 8th grade. We've had the conversation with Mary Swack to say, could more kids qualify and do just as well? Yeah, we're definitely open to that. But you start to see proficiency levels begin to drop when you start to remove those other students and push them forward, if that's making any sense right now.
No, it is, and I appreciate you saying that, because one of the things that I've noticed, and this is just anecdotal, this is one person's experience,
Yeah.
but, you know, my daughter is in the honors math track at her school, and when she took the 7th grade assessment this year, her coursework was 8th grade coursework, but they get the 7th grade assessments, and so we looked at, you know, all the topics that were supposed to be tested for the 7th grade assessment and said, wait a minute, she never got instruction on several of those.
Those are the types of conversations that are having.
There's disjoints.
Yes, these conversations are the ones that Dr. Hart's referring to that are now beginning to take place in our curriculum office. Another piece is, you know, we look at accelerating, and again, I just sat in front of you for an hour and a half talking about G&T. But with that said, you know, you have to look at what percentage of the SAT, you know, is Algebra 2. You know, it's a fraction of it, right? It's mostly before that. So again, it's the same thing that folks run into, is that they're actually trying to remember back of concepts they've already learned to be on that assessment, because they're so far past it in some cases, and that's the point you're bringing up right now.
And that's exactly where I was trying to get to from the high school perspective, is that, you know, everybody's being tested on the 10th grade standards, but are they at all
Well, it's an
varying
Algebra
levels
1,
of...
yeah. It's an Algebra 1 assessment that you're looking at to make sure that we're trying to get these kids to pass it, you know? So we have 100% passing, nearly 100% passing rate in 8th grade right now, which is nearly a quarter of our kids, you know? But then we have 75% that are going to have to pass it. And when will they pass
Eventually.
it? Yeah.
Right.
And when will they pass it? That leads us to the next slide, which is well-rounded curriculum. And we use the measurement as far as access to well-rounded curriculum and also credit for completion of a well-rounded curriculum. If you look at the elementary and the middle schools, we almost have a perfect score, but those are more prescribed schedules. When we get to the high school, students have choice, and we just had that conversation about choice and students' interest. And so we give students a choice, but it may not align to what the state expectations are right away as far as access to a well-rounded education. And so we've been having conversations about that. What does that look like? Well, for the elementary schools, it's the students that are enrolled in science, social studies, fine arts, physical education, and health. Well, that's every student. That's their schedule. It's no different. There's no choice with that. And then also with middle schools, it's fine arts, physical education, health, and computational learning. We've had some students that aren't actually in the computational learning, which is the tech ed classes, because, for example, if I have an interest in music, I may be in band and chorus. And so we have to make sure that our students are participating in a well-rounded curriculum and also allowing our students to go with their interest and be interested and engaged in school and want to come back to school. So we're going to continue to have those conversations. But when we get to the high schools, it's the percentage of students graduating or exiting with a certificate of program completion, and they must be enrolled in an advanced placement course and score at least a 3 or higher. Participate in dual enrollment, enrolled in an MSDE-approved career and technology education program. So there's different opportunities when you get to high school. Meanwhile, you also have your core subjects. And so, for example, I may be a 9th grader, and I may not enroll right away. For example, I'm just going to say a foreign language course. At that point, I may not appear that I'm involved in a well-rounded curriculum or engaging in a well-rounded education, but eventually that part will catch up. But for right now, we have our students that are involved in different programs, again, dual enrollment, which we love that our students are doing that. And so what we're trying to do as a system, and we've just had this conversation over the last couple of weeks, what are our next steps to increase participation and make sure that those numbers increase from that 77% and that 78%. And so one of the examples was, and I think you've heard about this before, but the dual enrollment opportunities at the comprehensive high schools. And so students will have more opportunities to be enrolled in a well-rounded curriculum. So that's a piece that we're working on right now, and so hopefully we'll be coming back to you soon with more information.
And with the CTE piece, the Career Technology Education piece, the students have to be enrolled at the concentrator level, which is typically the third course, so a little over halfway through the program. And a lot of times we see students who will try a course, accounting 1, not my thing, I'm not going to take any additional, courses there, so they wouldn't be counted within that percentage.
And Jackson?
I was just wondering about the numbers. It says there's a lower percentage of students who have access to a well-rounded curriculum versus credit for completion of a well-rounded curriculum.
Thank you for that, because we've been talking about that same data. So thank you for bringing that point, and we would love an answer for you. No, I'm just kidding. The first part is the number of students enrolled. And so you're really not looking at the same data at this point. One is the number of students enrolled. The other is the students that are passing or graduating.
All right. That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
And Dr. Hart, has there been any oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Herbert, go ahead.
Go ahead. You go right ahead first, sister.
I was just curious if there's been any discussion about the 4-mod day and impacts on
Really?
it. Did I hit your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. No, I have 3 things I want to say. You're fine.
And how that might impact this, because, I've heard anecdotal comments about how the 4-mod day killed electives and things like that. So I'm just curious if that has an impact on these percentages.
And I envision that somebody's getting up behind me.
Yeah.
Backup has arrived.
All right. No, so the initial answer is no, not at this moment. But I will say that, again, and I brought the other person that knows way more about that than I do, but what we have been doing, which you've been a part of, I think all of you, is looking at providing pathways for all students that historically may have not had the opportunity. I know CTE concentrated was a topic of conversation. Pam and Patty Burns put together that CTC evening at Bill's school last year of showing how, listen, this is available for you too. This is another way. The dual enrollment now, you don't need a vehicle to drive down the road. It's in your school now. And, it's all these other types of things we're trying to do that aren't a response to your 4-mod, but I'll let Eric talk.
And the banning the 4-mod day could have catastrophic impact on career and tech. That's really
why.
That's when the conversation sort of ends.
And the conversation ended. That's a pretty lofty statement to just throw out there. Basically say we're not going to talk about it because it destroys career and tech. I mean, there's always discussions that can be had about how that could be mitigated.
Sure.
If we think that the 4-mod day is problematic in other arenas.
Right. And that's certainly a conversation that we could have in a future, work session if the board wishes to explore that further.
I will say that Mr. Weaver is the expert on the 4-mod day, because when I was at North Carroll, he ran that committee. Dr. Eccles, somebody's father back there in the back, designed this. And yes, and I will tell you, it killed extracurricular activities and in our, and not extracurricular, but electives in our schools. But they needed to do it for career and tech. Now, my question to you is, Mr. King, before you jumped up and left again, I do know because since it killed the band and you couldn't take art, it killed our phys ed program there. Then we started to do like AB days, and now are we trying, everybody has AB days now, correct?
Yes.
And then have we changed it also that in a block, is there like shortened times or just AB days?
Yeah, we do not have that in place at this point. I am familiar with what you're talking about. So ADAB day is how we try to manage, especially the music courses. And the other thing to point out, too, is the 4-mod day gave kids 4 more opportunities for credits through their high school career than the 8-period day did.
Yeah, and I will say one thing, that my daughter graduated from North Carroll, and she wasn't a slouch student. But let me tell you, when you finish your math credits your junior year and you go to McDaniel College and your first class is calculus, you better be on your toes. that's something that, that you think about. But now we have a lot more opportunities than we did in the past. But I was just curious about when you brought that up with the For My Day.
And I would think if your daughter was in school now as a senior, she would take a dual enrollment course.
Yes, and I wouldn't have had to pay as much to go to college.
And now you have to be enrolled all 4 years in a math class.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so.
And thank you. And the next thing I was going to say is, Mr. Weaver, you better be putting billboard signs up, come to Carroll County, and we're the best advertisement for you, for to come to Carroll County. And then I have to tell you a little story. Jimmy has been ill and has had 3 operations within the last 12, 13 days. So my granddaughter came home the first week, and I see them every day. And she said, Mimi, I'm learning about the orders of operation. And I'm like, the orders of operation? What are you talking about? You go to the doctor, you get your MRI, and I was so out of it. She goes, Mimi, I am talking about math. So at home, if teachers or parents go home and they hear their child talking about order of operation, you're not going to the hospital. We're doing math. So it's just, but I just wanted to kick that out. Mr. Weaver, you better get that billboard up.
Just one comment. The For My Day has pros and cons.
Yes.
And I've seen great success with it. I've seen great failures with it. And when you get to that discussion, I think when we get into it, I do have some input, pro and con.
And that's the only reason why I asked the question. I'm certainly not saying that I'm for or against it. I'm simply asking the question of whether we think it's impacting any of these results, right? Like, could it be a reason why, the high school access for well-rounded curriculum is at 77% because of the For My Day might be driving that. And if we have those discussions, at least we can openly say whether we think this is a trade-off worth having, right? Following suit on that with math, right, if we're seeing the math high school results declining, is that potentially a contributor to it, a For My Day? Because I don't believe that, if Algebra 2 is meant to be a full year course, but we're condensing it into a half a year course by doubling the amount of time that you're spending on math for half the year, I don't think math can be taught that way, right? I mean, but maybe it is, maybe when you weigh all the pros and cons, it is it still might be the right answer, but I think it just needs to be part of the things that we're talking about.
So, I know you guys started talking about the For My Day, and with my daughter starting high school, so I graduated 20-some years ago, and we had the 8-Ma Day. And I need to go to a chiropractor now from all the books that I had to carry back then. I should go to a chiropractor, actually. The binders and the books and everything, compared to back then to now, like, I see my daughter is not as stressed as I was in high school, where I had math, English, social studies, science, plus a foreign language, plus whatever else. I mean, I would have 7 classes of homework in one night, where she maybe has 3. So, and I can even tell, and we're only in a couple of days, but I can see the anxiety level difference from middle school and high school is much less now than it was last year, because she doesn't have as much homework. She's not sitting there till 11 o'clock at night trying to do it. So I like the 4-A model because of that. The kids aren't as stressed. They're in activities. They're allowed to figure out who they are and start trying to see where they fit in socially or in sports. So I think it's a good thing we have, but the problem I have as far as well-rounded curriculum is we don't have everything in every high school. Some are more than others. And doing some type of online learning like we've discussed, I think that could help tap into that if a student, they are a good candidate for that type of program.
Yeah, I don't honestly think the 8-period day would increase offerings at any of the schools. And the other big thing, too, I guess, if going down this road, is the science lab opportunities are far better. PE is far better. Art is far better. Music is far better, because they can really get into something in 85 minutes instead of 48 minutes or whatever it may have been.
I wasn't going to talk about 90-minute mods. It kills PE. because you can't take it. Both of my sons, that's the worst thing I hated about it, is they couldn't do weightlifting if they wanted to take a lot of classes, you know. But anyway, my question really is on the slide, when we ought to do 4 mod days sometime. But we all get in our heads all these percentages and everybody wants an A. The high school at those 2 numbers, how's that compare to other systems? Are we bad? Are we good?
Yeah, we're right in the middle.
We're right in the middle?
Yeah, I mean, we're outperformed by a number of our neighbors, but you can pretty much say that we're performing right in the middle, and that's something that we have begun discussing. I don't necessarily think that it could be up for discussion of how the day is set up is going to have as large of an impact as it is of how we conduct our business and how we provide opportunities for kids. To give you a specific example, we've started having these conversations with leaders all the way down to the elementary level, and we're starting to make the argument that that high school number is highly influenced by the decisions at the elementary school. Are we challenging? Are we articulating effectively with our middle schools when kids are leaving 5th grade to 6th grade? Because we do know that once they get in there, as you said, President Savigny, it's hard to miss content area to accelerate them and jump them up another level so they do have the access or they do have another opportunity. So, we could have the conversation about how the day is set up, but it's just as important to be thinking about opportunities starting at young ages and setting them on a pathway, which is something we're going to be bringing to you this year.
And I don't think the different mods would affect this much either, but isn't a lot of it, which is a good thing, is the choice. Not only do they have the choice to take something or not take it, but they have a choice in what order to take it. And that's got to skew this, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, not only having the choice, but going back to our G&T conversation of being aware of your choices, of your decision, of your opportunities.
Dr. Lockhart.
I wanted to add to the space, if I could, for a second. The 2 words we're looking at is really the access and advocacy. And those are the 2 things that are going to drive and change those numbers. And so those are things and the conversations that we're having at the table that's going to impact that. 1, the access, the knowledge of the access. Is that information getting to our students and our family? How soon is it getting to our students and our family? And are we identifying talents and students that would benefit from these programs but just aren't aware? And the access, again, as simple as can we get students transported and bring opportunities to them instead of I don't have a car, I can't get there. So I think as we keep having the discussions about advocacy and access, those numbers for the high school are going to go up.
Thank you. It's a great conversation. Great conversation. I was just going to add, too, that it's not just this team. I think everybody knows this, but I'll say it. It's not just this team or folks here looking at this. We have some principals sitting in the audience here. They're combing through their data. And then we also have, with their school improvement teams and their teachers, we're also doing these Performance Academy model this year. It starts next week, where groups of, teams from every school are going to be coming to build their own capacity about just this kind of thing so that they are equipped with tools, resources, strategies, best practice, so they're not left to figure it out. It's not just us looking at it. It's really a larger group effort. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew this is a great conversation, but this is exactly the kind of conversation that's going to be happening in, if it isn't already, all over our school system in every school with teams really focused on that.
And Dr. Lockhart, thank you for that. I mean, that's really the spirit that my comments were made in. I didn't mean to stir up a hornet's nest about a Formula Day. It was simply like, okay, are we talking about, like, basically we said, okay, we're #1 in the state in math, but we still have some areas that we need improvement on, and how do we dig in? And what are we talking about as potential things that we can do to continue to improve the achievement for our kids? And I just want to make sure that we're talking about everything and that we're considering everything as we're trying to figure out those action plans of how to improve student achievement. So didn't mean to put anybody.
Thank you. That leads us to our takeaways, and I'm not going to read those because those are conversations that we just finished having, but what I want to do is summarize some of what was just said, is simply saying that we wanted to close by saying we wanted to build capacity with all stakeholders and provide professional learning for our teachers or anyone that interacts with families, and then we wanted to also reflect on how we interact with families. Where are we communicating this information as far as the options and pathways that students have to choose? And some examples that we just gave off the top of our heads were definitely some open houses. We would continue that, but do we need to do those differently? Is it the time of day? Is it the location? What is it that we need to do differently? We talked about chamber events. You may have another population of families that come to chamber events, and also our international family nights. We want to make sure that we're talking to all of our parents, all of our families, all of our students, reaching out to say there are multiple pathways, there are options for you at different levels. Here you are, how can we help you? And making sure that everybody has equitable access to all of those. So,
Ms. Herbert.
A thank you to Patty Burns. She's tearing it up, because I am telling you, she is moving and shaking and getting people involved like no other group has in the last several years for the international people. So kudos to her.
Mr. Kelly?
And thank you, and in a way, thanks for not reading the bullets, but bullet number 2 is giant. And I'd love to see, don't read it to us, but get bullet 1 and 2 in the Carroll County Times someplace. That's giant.
She's sitting right there.
Dr. Dorsey, did you have?
No, I was just going to say, even though farms is noted in the second bullet, don't forget the high school and that 10% gain that they had shown. So,
Thank you.
And Dr. Lockhart, you mentioned the performance academies that are happening next week. Is that intended to be, part of the action plans as?
So very similarly as the team that you have in front of you, will be a similar type of composite of school teams coming together. It is supposed to be in response to turning numbers into names. So that's great that we can see our proficiency percentages, but let's look at the students that are not proficient and let's know who they are so that we can actually begin to develop individual plans of how we're going to get there with those students. Performance Academy, Tech Services, Jen Seashall has done an amazing job of developing individual reports for every single school, so every single principal will be handed those students broken down by student populations, looking at where the deficiencies are, and then as a team, all of us are smarter than any one of us from the school, will sit down and make a plan. There'll be a breakout opportunity for equity liaisons, special educators, Nick's team, our ESOL population. Our principals will have a breakout session. So we're building the capacity of multiple types of folks, and then the afternoon they come back together and they'll hopefully see that they're sharing a synonymous message that they've all have heard in the morning in their breakout sessions, and they begin to work at developing a plan to focus on the historically underserved. G&T also included in that.
That almost sounds like it's like the school improvement plans, but the school improvement teams, but coming together.
So yeah, so one of the members that we are paying for to be coming that day, it's 3 days a year. One of the members is most likely going to be the SIT chair, the school improvement team chair that will be on that school team as well. Or an aspiring leader in our system.
And are board members welcome
course.
to the performance academies?
Absolutely.
When,
yeah,
when
and
do those take place?
Yeah, well, they start next week. We have 2 days of elementary meetings, 1 day of middle school, 1 day of high school. For the fall and winter, come spring, we will rearrange it to have a K-12 effort. That is, feeder schools will be working together at that time. So we begin to have support the articulation processes between elementary and middle and high. And community-oriented efforts.
And the date next week? The 17th I have down, the 17th.
I'll email you guys all of the dates and which levels will be there for the rest of the year.
And the 19th I have.
And Pam Mesta's done a great job of spearheading that, so thank you, Pam. Okay.
And Board members, I know that in the past we've had work sessions, right, to dig into park assessment results as they relate to strategic plan goals. I don't know if we think that that's worth doing again this year. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of work already going on behind the scenes. I don't want to preclude any of that. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I think at our level, certainly we're concerned about the numbers, and it's great to hear that it's the school staffs and supervisors and all who are going to be getting the names behind the numbers, so to speak. So I am confident knowing that the staff members are going to know who the students are, who are the names behind these numbers, so that, again, they can begin to work to make some improvements in their performance.
Yeah, it becomes very difficult not to personalize it when you
Right.
have the name sitting in front of you.
Other board members? So we'll let this process play out, and we'll see what comes forth as part of the January Pillar 1 update, and get some action items or follow-up items, I guess, at that point in time. Okay. Great. Board members, any other questions? No? Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I didn't know. I was taking up for those
That's
girls.
right.
Penny, you weren't paying attention because I was taking up for them.
Bring it on, Marsha.
You have the other one.
Oh, you should have been there at our meeting.
Okay, so, I lost sight of my agenda. There we go. Okay, so then we will move on to the reports section of the meeting, and first up is the report on the curriculum guide pilot programs for 2019-2020.
Hi, board members, this report is for your information. We provide this each year. Attached in the agenda item is a chart showing content areas where significant changes have been made to related curricula. We bring these for your information, and we also have staff here, obviously, if you have any questions about any of those.
Board members, any questions? Did you want to bring up the fiscal impact, Ms. Herbert?
At first, I was wondering what that 17,920, but I presume that is teacher salaries, working on that curriculum. Am I correct? Okay, see, I was right.
And that's accounted for in the budget.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other?
These items we see a little bit later on when we're actually looking at these guides, because again, at some point in this stack, we'll get to the actual curriculum guides that are noted here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. With that, then, we will just move on to the next topic. So it's revisions to administrative regulations for board policy JLI, students' exclusion, seclusion, physical restraint.
All right, board members, this agenda item is a result of changes in COMAR relating to restraint, seclusion, and so we wanted to make sure that you were aware that the administrative regulations have been changed accordingly. Mr. Streeker, our Director of Student Services, is available if you have questions about any of the changes in COMAR that necessitated changes to the regulation.
Mr. Kyler?
So all of the change, I don't even think you have to walk up, all of the changes in here were per COMAR, not any other changes.
Got off easy. Got off easy.
Board members, any other questions?
Don't go too far, Mr. Streeter.
Okay. Next up. Okay. Then we'll move on to item 5C, revisions to administrative regulations for board policy ADD, threats, violent acts, firearms, and other weapons prohibited.
Right. This also is a regulation that we made some changes to for your information, and Mr. Streeter can be able to tell you, while looking at the policy and regs during a debrief with staff, they felt like they needed to clarify some of the disciplinary action in cases where more than one high or imminent threat was made by a student. Mr. Streeker, do you mind just giving a brief overview of that?
With all the work that was done with that, if you remember the pages and pages of the plan, as we reviewed this and debriefed with staff and went over things, we realized that on page 5, as you'll see, the change we didn't outline the difference between a first offense and a subsequent offense. So if we would have a student who would have a subsequent offense, because they are cumulative in nature, so if they had an offense in 6th grade and then had one again in 10th grade, we outlined that we'll handle that differently, but what we forgot, candidly, in the write-up is to identify that in the reg. So that's what we've adjusted.
Board members, any questions?
So really, it's just that one sentence, 5C.
Yes, ma'am. 5C and then the additional, the first offense and then where it says any additional offenses.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's not too bad for all the writing that was in that, I think.
Absolutely.
I think that was pretty impressive, actually.
I don't take much credit for that. It's part of that team.
Great. Okay, we'll move on then to item 5D, the construction report. Dr. Lockard.
Right, so next up is our monthly update on school construction report, providing information on projects currently being administered by the construction department. Mr. Prokop and staff are here should the board have any questions about any of the projects on that report.
Ms. Herbert.
I was just curious. I saw that it stated that they had to relocate the field hockey field to another place where we didn't take them down to the woods or something. Where did you put them? I coached there, so.
No, I'm not exactly positive. I just know that they coordinated it, and the program will be able to run.
Okay, that's what I was very concerned with.
Yeah, it's been coordinated, so there shouldn't be an issue.
So those girls have a practice field, and they can play games there, and teams can come.
Right.
Well, very important.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Pataglia.
So actually, Mr. Kyler and I were wondering regarding the Career and Technology Center improvements, is there any more committee meetings that are being held?
Yeah, we talked this morning, and then we got an email kind of updating what was going on, but our committee meeting's over unless there's a major change, or what will happen with that committee?
Yeah, there was the email that was sent out. I thought that was an update, and I thought there was another meeting, quarter scale meetings.
The quarter scale meetings
Yes,
are happening, and we're welcome to attend that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then you would see the progress and the progression of during those meetings.
When would we anticipate the next update to the Board of Ed in terms of the next checkpoint?
It would be the design development documents that are currently being worked on with the estimates. There's a great deal of work that's occurring. Of course, the CIP is coming a little bit later for discussion, and that's all happening all at the same time. So I would imagine that towards December we're going to have more detailed information about the budgeting and the project.
Okay, so December. And so I do have some questions that I'll ask later as part of the CIP process, but I was just trying to understand what was the next checkpoint in terms of the documents.
It's the design development phase. The phase that we're in, and those documents coming forward, and all of the information. We will have a great deal of information by the time we get to that next stage.
Sorry. The quarter scale, now, and I understand they're doing that because of some changes and odds and ends, but I guess the construction manager will also be present at those now who wasn't before, or is this still just the architect?
Well, they're invited. I'm not sure exactly whether they were going to be there the entire time, but they'd be invited.
Okay.
We can make them there if you...
No, it's just,
you know,
no,
if there's
if they're
something you
invited.
wanted to discuss with them, we could certainly...
No, I was just curious because it's kind of a
Sure.
The fact that this has to be done again gives them an opportunity to see things that happened before they were involved. So I think that's great, but I don't know that they have to be. Thanks.
Mr. Prokop, just one other quick question about Liberty High School and the LFI classroom.
Mm-hmm.
It says here that the contractor is working evenings to avoid disruptions to the school.
That's right.
during the day. Does that add to the cost? I mean, I'm assuming that it's more expensive to have them working in the evenings than it is.
No, that was built into the fee, so there's no change order for that. It was built into the fee during into the scope of work at the bid process. So going to an evening work, kind of like the same thing with the roofing projects we're doing. They know that they have to go into off hours as long as we know that schedule ahead of time, which we did.
Okay. So was there, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so Ray, you're saying it was bid that way, it was put out that way?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. And is there, that's presumably because we don't want the disruptions during the day, but is there a reason why we wouldn't have done this work over the summer for that very reason, or?
It's an extensive amount of work. We just knew it was going to spill over.
It was going to spill over into the year. Okay, so it did start during the summer.
During the summer.
It's just spilled into the school year. Okay. Thank you. Board members, any other questions on the construction report? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to item 5E, the proposed high school program of studies for 2020-2021.
Right, so board members, item 5E should read proposed program of studies for 2020-2021. I think it's listed as 1920, so we'll make that correction. What you have here in the agenda packet is the high school program of studies, notable changes that are being proposed for the 2021 program of studies. They're included there, and this is for you to return to the board for approval on October 16th, our next board meeting. So this is here for you, for your review, for your questions, and we will bring that back in a month. We do have staff here if there are any particular questions about the high school program of studies.
Ms. Herbert's working up to it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Go ahead.
All right. First of all, the first thing I saw when I looked in here, it says computer science project lead the way endorsement, and it says will no longer be offered. And I called Mr. Eccles right away and I said, that's a great course, what are we doing with it? And then he explained that it's now a Cisco, and I just wanted to make sure, because if parents see this or anything, then that is, can you explain the difference, or, but I just know that was when they see no longer.
Right. So what we are doing is actually transitioning the computer programming style courses out into the regular high schools and changing what we're offering at the Current Technology Center to be on the cybersecurity, cyber operations side. So we are not reducing the number of programs that we're offering, but we're transitioning to a different style of computer-based program to give different opportunities to students.
And I think people need to know that. Yeah. So, because the first thing I saw was no longer, and I'm like, oh my.
In the grand scheme, it's going to be more, not less.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that clarification because I had the same question when I saw it on the course changes.
Now, according to this freshman seminar, it's just a recommended course now, is that correct? Or who am I? Oh, there she is. Am I correct?
That's correct.
But it's highly recommended?
Yes.
Okay, so I was just curious about that. Now, in this leadership with ROTC, how many students, like, do you need to do a startup? Like, you know, when we talked last week, when we had the meeting about extracurricular activities, and they said a lot of students from Francis Scott Key go to Winters Mill. How many students do we need to have up there at Francis Scott Key to participate up there so that we wouldn't have to bus them down there? Is that a feasible question, or?
I don't know of an exact number, but I know when Man Valley had a design team, Mr. Clark explored, I think, a naval JROTC program, and he was told no because they don't want too many within. It was area, mileage, and population. I do remember him having that conversation in principal's meeting. So I don't think that any of the branches of the military would allow Carroll County to have another program.
Because that's a disadvantage to Francis Scott Key.
Yeah.
That's not fair, to that. And that's why I asked if that was a possibility. So, okay, all right. Next question. In the health, in Health 1, do we have a lot of students opt out of the family life and human sexuality?
I don't have that information,
Okay.
but I can get that for you.
Okay, has anybody ever thought about moving that into 8th grade? Or no? Just curious.
I've not been part of any of those conversations.
Okay.
Anyone else? No? Okay.
Okay, because, and I think that's my questions on this. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Dorsey?
I had a question on the integrated government that's indicated on page 144. Is that a new course?
I got papers.
Beth Brown, Supervisor of Secondary Social Studies, will answer.
Good evening. It is a new course that we would be adding to address the needs of students who would not meet their graduation requirement by passing the government high school assessment, and would be using the avenue of meeting that requirement with the Bridge project. And so we're designing an integrated government course to address what will be delivered by the state, a new Bridge project that will look more similar to the expectations in our English and our math program. And so we need something, a fail-safe in our program of studies for students who would need and to meet those demands and provide adequate time for them to do that within their schedule.
Dr. Dorsey, did you have more?
I do, but I think I would like to just share, maybe with the supervisor.
Okay.
I
So we
don't
can
want
address
to-
some of those
yes.
offline?
Mhm.
Okay, great. I just wanted to piggyback quickly off of something that Ms. Herbert said about FSK with the ROTC. Like, I know that we have some concerns that have been raised with equity and access to students at FSK, and I know that we're talking about, virtual learning opportunities and things like that. So I'm curious if any of that is in these changes for 2021, or if we expect that to come out later.
So right now, we are in the discussion phase of what that looks like, and let me further explain. Greg is doing the exploration right now and the background work, and Greg, correct me where I'm wrong, is that there are a number of courses that, number one, we have to bring to you for approval before we can even offer those courses. There's also not a nice, clean alignment between how that course, the amount of time that course is going to take to be done, depending on how it's structured. We also have to look at, are we going to just go ahead and look at the Florida virtuals and the actual courses, other courses that have been approved by the state, and just say that's the way we're going to go, because that becomes a very expensive investment, because we're not necessarily having our teachers teach it. So there's lots of variables to consider when it comes to the virtual learning aspect of using that as a remedy to the lack of offerings at certain schools. We visited other school districts where they actually write their own courses, and that requires significant collaboration between the virtual learning team as well as the curriculum team. So there's lots of things to be considered there, but it's not necessarily going to be a clean plug and play right away. We are a school system that I think historically has had a handful of kids in that type of environment, where our neighbors are exceeding 1,500 kids in some cases. So there's a lot of things that we're learning, but it is going to first start off by getting your approval to those courses before we can even start offering them. And we're having conversation there on what that might look like in bringing that to you as we move forward. So again, I know that the vision of Dr. Lockhart is that we look at having a field test or a pilot perhaps next year, and do a slow roll of it. And what that looks like, we're still defining that.
Okay, but the timeline of how that would play out, like, and approval needs and things like that, that doesn't preclude us from piloting something in the 2021 school year.
No, because we can always bring, one of the things that I know Cindy and I talked about was potentially bringing an addendum, to this presentation that we're providing you, this report that we're providing you tonight, that already has a list of the state courses that have been approved. But then again, there's lots of things we have to consider, even with our tech services team as well, to figure out what can we get going next year.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, board members, I would be very willing to see those kind of addendums. Do we have consensus on that? Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Board members, any other questions? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to item 5F, the proposed curriculum guides for 2019-2020.
Thank you. Board members, you have here in front of you the proposed curriculum guides for this year. These revisions for curriculum guides were based on teacher input during last school year. So the content areas and the guides are listed there for you. We would like to bring this to your attention for questions and come back to the October 16th meeting for board approval.
Okay, and Dr. Lockard, this says for 2019-2020. That is the correct set of dates, correct?
Yes.
It's not the 2021 year.
Right. Correct.
Board members, any questions? I do have some quick questions about the secondary social studies. I'm not sure who to address those to. But, oh, okay. She's coming. Sorry. Hi. Hi. It's just some questions. So we're talking about the 8th grade U.S. history, the government pieces, and the issues in American society. Were these were approved as part of the curriculum council a year or so ago? Because I don't recall
Actually,
seeing
they were pilots
these.
last year for your consideration. We implemented and worked with them, got teacher feedback, and then finalized them this summer. So that is, so curriculum council doesn't necessarily, they can ask questions and provide feedback on curriculum through our conversations, but they don't necessarily, we don't actually pass out guides and units and materials for them to actually look at and do. If that's something that Ms. McCausland, that can happen, I believe, if that's something that we believe we need to do, that's absolutely a possibility as well. But they were the pilots that we proposed last year and were implemented, and getting feedback and making edits to this summer.
Okay. Okay. But that information is available for review. Okay, because I was thinking that we would have seen these things through the curriculum council recommendations and things, but I didn't recall seeing several of these topics as part of that discussion. So
We typically, our curriculum council, I know you probably saw our textbooks proposed from the spring, and that's one that, they very much get their hands on. They provide the feedback, the comment cards that our teachers write. They provide us feedback and comments on the text materials that we select to do that. But in the past, we've really not run those materials, in my experience in the jurisdiction, putting curriculum before that, and that might be something I know, Angie, you have talked about.
Yeah, so curriculum is available for them anytime to come in and review, and we are changing our curriculum council meetings this year to include more work sessions where they can work more closely with content area supervisors, assistant supervisors and coordinators, and look at curriculum and as well as the proposed materials for approval and feedback.
okay, thank you. And I think things with titles like the First Amendment in today's media, I know that a lot of our community would be very interested in seeing what some of those materials include. So.
It's just that digital citizenship, those responsibilities, how, what you do as in your presence, and how do you interpret information, and making those good questions about how you source something, how if you see a claim made in a social media post, how do you check that, and ensure the information that you're receiving and making decisions with is appropriate and meets your needs, and that's essentially what that unit is functioning to do.
Okay, yeah. Great. Thank you very much. Ms. Battaglia?
One thing that I was interested to learn is normally how we used to have some of the police departments come into our schools and meet with the students in the health classes. We are utilizing more of our SROs so they can incorporate more into the community, so they can have discussions with a lot of the kids in the health classes regarding drug abuse and stranger danger and things of those nature. So I was very happy to hear that that's something that we are doing to make sure that SROs are more community oriented.
Yeah, we continue to really engage those partnerships with different service providers within the community to come in and work with our students and work with our teachers.
Right, and our SROs are a great resource, can be a guest speaker in a class and share their knowledge and information pertaining to topics that students are talking about. Yep.
Board members, any other questions? Okay, then we will move on to section 6, public participation, and I do... Did I miss one?
Yeah.
I did miss one, I'm sorry. Item 5G, revisions to administrative regulations, ICA school calendar.
Yeah, you're just trying to skip right on over that one, aren't you?
Well, this is the first part, and we'll have another conversation here later on school calendar. I am sharing for your information some revisions to our regulation on school calendar as a result of updates based on legal changes governing the school calendar, and we included some of those legal references in the regulations. In addition, your board policy has been updated to the new template, and the legal references are updated. These are really non-substantive changes, so I presented them to you for your information. It really eliminates the executive order components. I am going to bring your attention to one additional change that I made in the regulation, and that is on the last page of the regulation, 3 of 3. We used to have written into our regulation a maximum of 8 2-hour and 45-minute early dismissals. I am changing that to 6. And depending on how the calendar comes forward, you could potentially see up to 6, but I believe that 8 is too many. And so the regulation, I'm just sharing that for your information. That's a lot of early dismissals if we were ever to utilize all those, and I think that creates problems for lots of reasons. So we left that in there as a way to do some of the things that we need to do, but we feel like 6 as a limit would be appropriate.
And again, Dr. Lockhart, those are system-wide early dismissal days, right? Not just for elementary level.
That is correct.
Mr. Klingenberg.
Mr. Lockhart, or Dr. Lockhart, I would just like to concur with the 2-hour delay day, or 2-hour 45-minute early dismissal days. Nothing gets done on those days. As a student, it's really just, especially at the high school level, because your lunch mod is that you get that full 80 minutes of your one class, and then teachers who have the same class who like to keep the two classes together, it throws them out of whack, and half days just not like gets done in the other 3 mods, and it just typically just not very productive.
Thank you for that feedback, Jackson.
He's doing great.
Doing great. All his
Absolutely.
parents.
Mr. Kyler.
Good job.
In the middle of page 3, the following holidays will be observed. Are they all required, or are they by choice of Carroll County?
I'm sorry, Mr. Kyler, what are you referring to?
The middle of page 3,
The state holidays.
yeah, 2 of 3, I'm sorry. Count 3 counting the cover sheet. Following holidays will be observed. Are they all required to be reserved, or are they our choice?
They're not all required. John, is it just...
I'm afraid my LASIK is failing me because I couldn't read that from there.
I know that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are not state-mandated holidays, correct, John?
Correct. And Labor Day. So the first one and the last 3 are not state-mandated holidays.
That's right, Labor Day is. I hear from other jurisdictions that have a much larger Jewish population than we do that they do not count those as holidays, but they give excused absences. And I just don't know if that's an option for us. With all the emergency days and in-service days, our year is getting longer and longer. And I didn't know, and I forgot about Labor Day, which is hard to understand why that's not. But, yeah.
So we will have a little bit of conversation around that at the later agenda item, because the calendar committee that discussed that in the survey that went out actually ask questions around that. So I think if you're okay, Mr. Kyler,
Oh, yes.
we will have that discussion a little bit later, and certainly, you know, the regulation can be amended at any time based on that. I just wanted to bring what I know already to be changes in the state's regulations.
Okay, so based on that discussion that we have a little later in the meeting, there might be additional revisions to these regulations.
Potentially. The calendar that we'll bring forward here in a little bit will sit out for 2 months. So I think by board policy. So I think I would say to you, when we're considering holidays, I think we should, as I know everybody here would agree with, that we'd give the benefit of public feedback for any of that, you know, before making a decision about taking anything out.
Okay.
Right.
Board members, any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Then now we will move on to Section 6, public participation, although do we have any additional blue cards in the room? No? No? Okay. All right, so then we'll move swiftly on to Section 7, the action items. So, board members, I need a motion for the approval of appointments.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey,
Second.
second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Lockhart.
Okay, thank you, board members. I'm pleased to recommend to you this evening Jennifer Mitchell to acting assistant principal at Mount Airy Elementary School, retroactive of August 26th. As you know, Jessica Smith, who previously was the assistant principal at Mount Airy Elementary, was promoted to principal of Freedom Elementary School at our August meeting, and so this recommendation as Jennifer Mitchell to acting assistant principal fills that vacancy.
Mr. Kyler?
I know a lot of people get concerned about principals and how long they're going to be there. Is it safe to say acting doesn't mean real short term? Is that safe to discuss tonight?
Acting assistant principal is not a permanent position. In this case, because we're at the beginning of the school year, and because we typically well, I'll just say that a lot of our assistant principals come from our classroom ranks. We're probably not going to be advertising to fill this position in the first half of the year. We have a good acting assistant principal that we're recommending to you. We will look in the spring when we do all of our assistant principals for a permanent assistant principal there, and that person will go through the applicant pool as we typically do. Process, yeah.
And there would be no continued domino effect from this, correct? I mean,
probably not, because we would make that effective for July 1. So just like we do every year when we hire a new assistant principal, we like as best we can to get those over the summer, so that you know, there's a little bit more fluidity with the transition. But that doesn't always happen, as we know. So.
Board members, any other comments or questions? Okay, then I call for the vote. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 7B. Board members, I need a motion for the approval of personnel action items.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kyler. Dr. Locke.
Okay, board members, in your agenda packet this evening, I am requesting approval for 19 new hires, 3 released from contract, 2 promotions, 1 increase, and 1 decrease.
Any questions? And Dr. Locker, did this have us fully staffed on day 1 for school opening?
I'm looking at Ms. Baptist, and yes, fully
Yes, it
staffed
is.
on day 1.
Excellent.
Great.
And did we have any unexpected shuffling this year due to kids showing up? I know last year we had a couple of last-minute things.
I'm going to look to Ms. McCabe and the directors. No?
No, we did not have any of that
That's
this
great.
year. Okay, excellent.
I didn't understand your question.
Oh, last year we had,
12 second graders show up.
there was one class at, was it Winfield?
Elmer Wolf.
Or Elmer Wolf? that
Elmer Wolf.
A
12
lot of
second
kids
graders.
showed up that we weren't expecting, and we had to shuffle some teachers around for classrooms.
Oh, the students who registered on the first day of school. is what you're
Correct,
talking about.
correct.
Okay. Mhm.
And then we also had an issue at Shiloh Middle where there was a very large honors class that we decided at the last minute to do some shuffling.
You're exactly right.
Okay.
So last year, we had a last-minute increase at the kindergarten level, which we had to do some staffing changes, and again, at the middle school. Honestly, that's a good memory. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, but we didn't have any of those kind of things crop up this year, so that meant that we're fully staffed on
Correct.
day one with this list of approvals. Excellent.
You guys did start smoothly.
Yes.
Right.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah. Mm.
Right.
All right. Board members, any other questions? Okay, then I call for the vote. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, item 7C. Board members, I need a motion for the approval of Carroll County Public Schools negotiators. Moved by Dr. Dorsey,
Second.
second by Ms. Battaglia.
All right, so
Dr. Lockhart.
board members, I'm seeking approval for staff who are directly or indirectly involved in collective bargaining. As you know, during the school year, Board of Education representatives will negotiate with our 5 associations, and I'm bringing you a list of staff who would be available to be part of those teams.
And Dr. Lockhart, I know the first time I saw this list as a board member, I remember looking at it saying, this is a huge list, and I don't know many names on it. Now I'm in the position where I actually know most of the names on it. It still feels like a very large list. So just for the benefit of the other board members, if we could talk about the vetting process and why this list is so large.
Sure. So this list appears to be very large, but during the collective bargaining session, it's just a fraction of that group. Some of those individuals are utilizing subject matter experts, which we can tap into at any given time to acquire information.
And I just double checked to make sure your name was on it.
It doesn't have to be.
Well, I guess that would be one of my questions. So, the vetting process for these names, it is a fairly large list because it's anyone who we might need during the negotiating process.
Correct, with any of our bargaining units. So some of those individuals may have a specialization in food services, and so therefore we have the ability to go acquire information in regards to those programs for those individuals.
Okay. And I presume that this has been reviewed by legal, like there's no legal issues with having a list this extensive. I mean, this is pretty typical, correct?
There's no typical or untypical. You can have a list as long and short as you want. It doesn't matter.
Board members, any other questions?
This is going to sound kind of silly, but because some people put things out there on social media and like to make their own assumptions of things, can you explain why one of the board members is not part of this?
Sure, so the board members give us our parameters. My negotiating partners over here are trying to grill me now. So, ladies, our board members are officially going to craft the official final discussion. So in order for them to be at the table, they will then already be privy to the information that we have discussed at the tables, which makes it difficult for them to make an unbiased decision together, collectively, as hearing the information all at once together.
Thank you.
Good answer.
They still don't like my answer.
I know.
I feel it.
Thank you.
All right, with that, then I will call for the vote. Board members, all those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 7C, I need a motion for the approval, 7D, I need a motion for the approval of award of bids. Moved by Mr. Kyler.
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Lockhart.
Okay, board members, we have 3 items on the award of bids. The first is architectural and engineering services for Cranberry's roof project. That's part of our CIP. And we can certainly talk about each of these. The second, electricity supply services. This is a regularly scheduled bid for electrical services, which I'll note is both a $500,000 savings and a $400,000 cost avoidance. Happy to report that to you.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yes, and the third is our dental plan provider. That's the scheduled bid of the dental plan, and the incumbent group is being awarded, and administrative fees are lowered as a result. So with that, I'll open those up to questions, and we have staff available should you have any specifics.
I just want to make a comment about number 2. I think that's excellent news to report on, with a $500,000 savings over prior contracts. And the $400,000 cost avoidance, can you help me understand what that entails?
Yes, I'm going to see if Mr. O'Neill can
Or Chris
give that review
as well. And credit to Chris and his staff and Ray and that team for pointing out that there was a change in law that would have increased fees under any contracts signed after October 1st. And so in recognition that that was coming, they put together this bid in advance. We do bid it regularly anyway, but it upped it a little bit so that if we bring you this award tonight and you approve it, then that contract is effective prior to October 1, and that $400,000 increase is avoided for the duration of this contract. We'll catch it next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. Board members, any other questions? I did just have one other quick question on item number 3 for Cigna and the dental plan bid. It said that Cigna offered the best network match and that they did have the lowest of the administrative costs. But what about the other pieces of the cost? Is this an increase over last year's budget?
It is an increase over last year's budget, but looking at them overall, the second lowest competitor, they came in, however, they were offering a 10% savings over cost administration off of the claims. So since we don't know what that will potentially be, that could have that's a undefined cost that may make them increased over top of Cigna at the end of the year. In addition, it would create their network was not as strong as Cigna's, so we would have an increase in out-of-network fees for our participants because of the fact as though the network, with localized network, was not as strong, which would potentially have another undefined cost for us in the end.
Okay. And what was the cost differential between Cigna and the next lowest cost provider?
I have the point variation, but the difference in cost, I can acquire that for you. Because we had, so just to give you a little bit of details, we had 7 firms submit for the request for proposals, of which all 7 were deemed qualified, and they were given points based off of cost, fee structures, doctor penetration, network guarantees, geo access, and having the top providers within the region. So based off of those categories, they were given a cost a credit analysis for each of the carriers. But their overall cost, I don't know that offhand, but I can get that for you.
Okay. I would appreciate that. But it is entirely possible that they would end up being low cost given that 30% reduction factor.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. All right, board members, any other questions?
And we've been using Cigna for...
We have had Cigna since 2013, and they have not had large or significant increases in rates since 2013. So, and the group, when they were vetting the Cigna, the carriers in general, it was some consideration given in regards to disruption and having our group have to go select new dental providers.
All right, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 7E. I need a motion for the approval of policy KB, family engagement. Moved by Dr. Dorsey, Second by Ms. Pataglia. Dr. Lockard.
All right, so board members, the next three approvals, family engagement, community engagement, business engagement. Mr. Anderson came to you last month. It's all running together. Last month, presented each of these revised policies, breaking one policy into three, and gave the impetus for that. They've been out for feedback for the last month, and Mr. Anderson, I don't know that we received any feedback. You can tell us if we did.
Yeah, we received one piece of feedback in regards to our family engagement policy of a new family who's joined CCPS in the last year, and they had a number of questions in regards to it. We then decided to invite the family in, meet with the family, go over the policy, and I'm happy to say that now that family will be a part of some of our community outreach efforts moving forward. So we were able to sign them up for some support while they were here. So it ended positively.
Ms. Herbert?
Yes. I know we have grouped these all together in the last couple of meetings, and I would suggest that, and unless you think I'm wrong, it says that we will review this every 3 years. I think for the first year, I think we need to go back and look at this all next year, because right up top in the right-hand corner, it says review every 3 years, but do you think we need to go, I think we should go back and look at it and see how things are working.
Yeah, so the original policy were these three.
And I'm grouping all three of these together.
Yeah. Had not been revised for a long time, several years,
Yes.
over 7 years.
And thank you.
Yeah, so we can certainly do that. We can make that modification and make sure we revisit this in the next year to see how well it's working. Yeah, I'll make sure I'll put a note of it and we'll bring it back.
Could I add just a suggestion for your consideration, Ms. Herbert? Because we really need a little bit of time. I'm wondering if we could meet in the middle and take a look maybe in the spring of the second year, so we have a kind of a full picture.
I don't have a problem at all. I just thought 3 years was too long, and just like the family that just came in that had some suggestions or whatever, I just, I just think, and this has been pushed away and under the door and everything else, and now it's been brought back to light, and I just thought maybe we should, okay, and I think a year and a half,
Well,
that was good.
I can tell you that just today we had a meeting in regards to business engagements and our policy there, and we talked about, do we do a 1-year MOU, do we do a 3-year MOU? So there's benefits to both. Certainly we can bring it back in 2 years out. I mean, the good news is that this is directly linked now to our Pillar 2 within the strategic plan, so it's something we will be reporting out on as we just did.
And I know you're all swamped because you are all just working so hard, and that's fine.
Yeah, we'll definitely
But
do
I
that.
thought 3 years was too long.
Okay, so 2, that we'll make that modification?
okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Anderson, I do have a couple of questions. I apologize that I wasn't here to make my comments at last month's meeting. But in the family engagement policy,
Yeah.
I do have some questions on Section 4,
Okay.
under the guidelines. If you look under letter E, where it says that, we're equal partners, I just want to make a distinction that that's in the educational context, correct?
Yes.
I mean, we don't have authority over
Correct.
families outside of, the educational context.
That's correct, yeah. So are you suggesting that we go ahead and make that, we go ahead and change some of the language there and revise that to
I'm not
better
sure. I
illustrate
mean,
that?
I guess I'm curious to, legal's opinion. It's probably not something that, is that sort of inherent in the language, that you
Yes.
don't need to make that distinction?
They do not, no.
Okay.
But I have one comment I want to make, too.
Okay. Well, I wonder if
When you're
it's
done.
with regard to creating policies.
No.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and make your comment?
Under 4 procedures number 2, there's a reference to encouraging electronic communication, and that can be very problematic, as we know. I don't know that, I hate to talk like I'm in the Stone Age,
No,
but I'm not a proponent of a lot of electronic communication
Mm-hmm.
because it causes all sorts of issues for everyone. Litigation issues,
Mm-hmm.
Infringement on somebody's time alone at night
Mm-hmm.
issues.
Yeah.
Ms. Eisenberg, I'm sorry, just for reference purposes, are you referring to the administrative regulations,
I'm on
number 4?
I'm on number 4, procedures, A2.
A2. Okay, so that would be page 2 of
Where
the
is that?
regulations.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it says basically providing opportunities for parents to communicate directly with principals and other administrative staff. But it also, at the very last piece there, says electronic communication.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, we can certainly bring this back to our committee to look at that. I think the intention there was that a significant amount, and I understand what you're saying in regards to records and personally identifiable information. I do know, speaking, what my principal hat on is that a lot of communication today is done through email, other different types of opportunities like that. But if that's something that you're providing consult on, that we should potentially just remove and just...
I would take that out.
Yeah.
It can become abusive, actually, when somebody's insisting on emailing a lot
Yep.
and expecting a response immediately.
Okay.
And quick responses lead to poor answers. And then people start writing you at night and expect answers at night.
Mhm.
And it just becomes a very difficult situation for administrators and teachers.
Right. And again, that is written as an example, but yeah, we can take that out to
Well,
avoid that.
Let me just chime in. I appreciate the perspective. I'm not sure that was the intent, though. I think the intent was around, the communication, right? That's the subtitle there.
Yeah.
And making sure that there's open communication between the home and the school, et cetera. And so when we get to opportunities for parents to communicate directly with principals or other folks, I think this is just signaling it's okay to, if you have a question, you can email your teacher or your principal or the assistant principal. I get what you're saying. I don't know that I don't know that this intends to set us up for that. So in the sort of lens of, it's like there's lots of ways you can get a hold of us. This being one of them, as parents are. I mean, we put on our newsletters and on our websites, here's how you can get a hold of us. We advertise it. We ask for feedback here electronically from constituents on board agenda items, and
Yeah, I mean,
just like we're asking our schools to.
I understand what you're saying, because I used to say to my teachers, pick up the phone and call them. But with that said, I did, because oftentimes that communication is misinterpreted. But I also do know also that we spend a significant amount of time communicating via email and other types of things as a system as well. So, yeah, that's something that I hear what you're saying. Whatever the board decides, I'm happy to.
Miss, go ahead.
On this same subject, and I understand what you're saying, because, I hate it when somebody calls me and says, did you get my email, and it was a minute and a half ago. But what I've done, and I hope I'm not wrong, I've had a couple people come to me and say, I was trying to meet the principal of XYZ. I've called, and then I get somebody else, and whatever, and I said, email them. And I got a call back. Man, they answered in like 10 minutes. And I said, they're busy, they're doing stuff, but I know, you look at this. So I know what you're saying, but I know I've encouraged people to email. Now, I haven't promised them anything, but, so I don't know if I'm wrong or right, but.
No. Well, I appreciate Ms. Eisenberg's comments, because one of the things I was going to ask was, has legal reviewed this for sufficiency? So I'd definitely take the comments. But these are the regulations, right, that we don't necessarily, the board doesn't vote on regulations. So this would be Dr. Lockard's view of whether this needs to be in here, or if maybe based on advice of counsel that,
Right.
that maybe we tweak some of the wording.
Right.
To alleviate some of the situations that you described. Does that make sense?
It's two-edged.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ms. Herbert, did you have a?
I was just going to say, because I've had parents before send you an email, and if you did not respond, they went right on up to the administration and said, you did not get a hold of me. You know, I did not contact. But I might have been on the back 40 doing soccer, and I wasn't going to do it during class, and, you know, that works both ways. So I will say that. And then it is easy sometimes, because a lot of times you'll call home and nobody answers too. So then how do you get, then you send them an email. So that it's a double sword.
Yeah.
It is.
So what I hear, the board would like us to go ahead, and since it's in the regulations, that we'll go ahead and we have further conversation, but probably remove that language or think of better language to be used that doesn't put us in that situation. And then can I go back to what you had said earlier, President Savigny, in regards to the actual policy underneath number 4?
Right, so still within 4E.
4E.
Where it says, together they inform, influence, and create policies, practices, and
so
programs.
is
I'm a
that-
little bit worried about that creating policies language, because the Board of Ed creates and approves the policies. I mean, they can certainly be involved in discussions about drafting policy language, but I'm a little worried about the use of that language.
But they do inform in the creation of
Yeah,
policies.
and they have.
I mean, that's why we put the stuff out there for people's feedback. It is, and to your point, maybe we should say the board ultimately, you know, uses all that to create the policy, but they absolutely inform, because we ask for their feedback.
Would it be better to use influence rather than create?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Together they inform and influence.
Policies, practices, and programs.
That's one way to say it, or potentially they inform and influence in the creation of policies, practices, and programs, or something. Either way, I think fine. But
Yeah, just take out the words "and create policies."
Right.
Okay.
Just delete it. Yeah. Yeah. They inform, influence practices and programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll remove that language, and I'll bring it. Is that necessary for me then to bring that back again one more time for a final vote? Or can we vote on that, having that change?
I think we can vote on it as amended.
Well,
okay.
You don't vote on regulations, do you?
No, but
This is part of the policy.
Oh, this is the policy? I
Yeah.
thought it was a regulation.
Yeah, it's under policy 4E.
Oh, it's on both, okay.
And one other question about under item 4F, we say under advocacy, families are empowered to be advocates for their own and other children. And I understand the intent of that, and I applaud the intent of that, but I also worry if that opens us up to some issues where, you know, if I don't want somebody advocating for my children of something that I disagree with. You know, I don't want that to look like, you know, parents have the right to trump other parents' rights to. And like I said, I understand the intent. I'm just a little bit worried about the wording of that.
So could we change that to just families are empowered to be advocates for students, for their children?
Or their children.
For their own
Children?
for their children.
For their
Yeah, just for their children.
Yep.
Right.
Period.
Okay, we'll remove that too.
Yeah.
Board members, is everyone okay with that?
I don't know whether they liked it, but I've been advocates for other people's children,
Right.
and kind of asked who I was, and I understand what you're saying, but the parents wanted me to. So I'm not sure.
And I think if there's like a student in need, I mean, it is kind of an adult's obligation to kind of like advocate for that child if no one's going to do it for them.
But I see what you're saying, too.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we need to have it, do we have to have that written in a policy for people to go ahead and do that? No, right?
You're right. Take it out.
Take it out.
Okay.
Take it out?
Take it out.
Delete it's better than, yep.
Just take out
So it'll
and
just
other.
say their children.
Correct.
Board members, any other questions or comments on the policy? Okay, so then we have two amendments, and it would be to remove the words "and create policies," and to, under 4E and under 4F, to cross out "own and other."
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I have to.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. So then,
Under
I
regulations.
need to make a motion.
Isn't there an email part here?
I will take my motion, or can I take mine off to
That's only-
move it as amended now?
Yes, so I need a motion to approve the policy as amended.
Yes, so moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey,
Second.
second by Ms. Battaglia. Okay, so all those in favor of approving the policy as amended passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. And we will move on to, board members, I need an approval, a motion for the approval of policy KC, community engagement.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kyler,
Second.
second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Locker.
Right, so board members, this is the second of three, as we've been discussing, on engagement. This one centers around community engagement.
Board members, any questions? Dr. Dorsey.
I'm looking at the policy, page 4. Definition C is repeated on the next page for letter I. So I guess we just delete I. C defines educational champion, and so does I. So if we could just delete I.
I'm sorry, Dr. Dorsey, could you say again where that is located?
So you're under number 8?
Page 4, number 8, definitions.
Yes, 8C and 8I are repeats.
Yep, they are.
So the recommendation is to delete I because it's repetitive. It's
Thank you.
listed
There it
twice.
is. Yep.
Okay.
Right.
And Mr. Anderson, just under 8E definitions, it says educational patron is, business or community agency provides foods and/or services. Is it foods and materials? And there are certainly other materials that we might want to accept as a
Foods,
patron
materials,
of
and/or services?
foods, materials, and/or services.
Mhm.
Got that?
Got it.
Okay. Board members, any other questions or comments? I did have a question under the regulations, just under item E, where it says turn community members into leaders and advocates. And again, I apologize for not being here last month to ask these questions, but could you just give me an idea of what
An
exactly is
example?
that? What are we trying to accomplish with that?
Well, one example could be your community advisory council. It could be your PTA. It could be a type of booster organization, perhaps, where they're becoming advocates for their efforts around their philosophy or whatever it is that they're trying to do for the school. So those are just a few examples, and that's how when this was developed, I believe that was the intention.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, I sort of looked at that one too, and again, I know it's wordsmithing and it is a regulation, but I was thinking in my head more about providing opportunities for community members to become leaders and advocates.
Correct, and yeah, when we're looking at community engagement moving forward, Oftentimes, and I can give you another example, as a principal, I would have a number of parents come in and become literacy coaches and trainers for other parents to be engaged in the school. So they become leaders within my school of building a team of parents and community volunteers that came in and worked every day.
So to Dr. Dorsey's point, would it be more appropriate then for E, the big heading there, to be, instead of turning, could it be provide opportunities for community members to be leaders and advocates?
Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Board members?
So provide opportunities for community members
to be leaders and advocates.
Got it.
Okay. Great. So then the two minor changes that we had to
The policy.
the policy KC are, we're adding foods, materials, and/or services, and we're deleting item 8I because it's repetitive.
Repetitive, right. And
Okay.
yes, it's materials after foods, yeah.
Okay, great. So with those two changes, so I need a motion for the approval of policy KC as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey,
Second.
second by Ms. Battaglia. And any other discussions? Okay, then I call for the vote. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. And board members, I need a motion for the approval of policy KG, business engagement.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
second by Mr. Kyler. Dr. Lockhart.
Board members, Mr. Anderson is still here for any questions you might have.
Number
You didn't leave. That's good.
So this policy was actually created in order to begin to refine our efforts in creating business partnerships. I know historically there was a position that really managed this type of work, and then that position was removed. So it's had recently fallen over the past couple years on some of the work that Judy had done, some work that Carrie had done. And so now what we're doing, and as I mentioned earlier, just today we met with Ray and listening to some of the direction he's going in regards to use of facilities to make sure that we are working together to provide a more focused effort on identifying business partnerships that are supporting our strategic plan and that clearly identify an educational or social emotional positive impact on our students. And that's been the purpose of it. And we will be working on this. We'll be working on all the pieces behind it throughout the year. But we're feeling good about where we're going. At least Carrie Gaddis said twice today that she was really happy we had that meeting. So, yeah.
Board members, any comments or questions? No? All right, then I call for the vote. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. So board members, now I need a motion for the approval of transfer of school bus contractors.
Oh, we missed the...
7H.
I missed another one. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
This one, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Who wants to go home?
Item 7H. Keep jumping the gun. Okay. Item 7H. Board members, I need a motion for the approval of policy IKAB, grading homework and communicating student achievement policy.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kyler. Dr. Lockhart.
Mr. Anderson brought in August to the board updates to this policy to comply with state student record requirements as set forth in COMAR in terms of explaining the process of any grade changes and making sure that's included in each system's local policy. We are required to do that, which he has done, and explain to the board in August and submit that to MSDE by October 1st of this year.
And again, this is just for changes that are being mandated in Comar. There's no additional changes.
None,
Right.
none, not right now.
Board members, any comments or questions? Oh, Dr. Dorsey.
Again, I'm on the regulation now, and again, I know we're more concerned with the policy. But I just had a question concerning communicating student achievement on page 3. I'm wondering about the interim reports. Interim reports are issued for grades K through 2 at the midway point of each marking period. Do those go out to every student or only as needed? And again, is it every marking period?
So I'll let Ms. McCabe speak specifically to the practice here.
So, yes, at the primary grades, actually all elementary grades, we do have interims that go out for every child.
Not just as needed?
No.
Okay, so every child will get those.
So were they supposed to be online, or is it something that we get physically and sign?
It depends. Each school does it a little bit differently. But, you know, as far as grades 3 through 5, you do have access to HACK as a parent. But even though you have access to HACK, the school sends something out at interim time. And for K through 2, you should get an actual interim.
I'm just going to let you know this is news to me, because last year,
nothing.
I didn't see anything for my son. And even like when I would go into home access, things weren't really updated that much.
Well, that's certainly something that I can look into. Yeah.
Which grade level was that?
That was
for?
5th last year.
It was 5th, okay.
Yeah, there should be something at the interim time that at least reminds parents to go on HACK and look, if not sending out something separate.
Ms. Herbert?
I think we need to look into that because I know some of my ambassador schools do not do that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we can look at.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's part of the, there isn't anything in the policy that states that we will do that. That's part of the regulations, is that correct?
I believe so. I don't think that's in the
Okay.
policy.
Okay. But it sounds like we have some concerns with consistency across schools. Okay.
Right, and just point of clarification on page number 4, again, it's still a part of the regulation. Letters D and E are the same, so it's just a matter of deleting E as it's stated there and dropping the other letters down.
Okay, well that, I wasn't touched, so that's been sitting there like that, so we'll change it.
I just...
Been like that a lot of years.
For a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board members, any other questions or comments? Yeah?
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, because you have been bombarded, and just keep up the good work. Don't leave yet, please.
It's the team.
I know the door's there, but please don't run away.
You're not
Not
going
running
anywhere.
No.
So,
He's thinking of something to say. I'm not going
no, but I want to thank you, because you guys have been,
Our
like...
team, honestly.
Yes, right.
They've
Thank
done an amazing
everybody
job.
for everything that they've been doing.
Yeah.
So, I really appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, so board members, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Right.
Make sure I'm not skipping another one.
No.
Okay.
School bus contract.
Okay, board members, now I need a motion for the approval of the transfer of school bus contracts.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Lockhart.
All right, so I'm recommending approval of the school bus contract recommended in the agenda item from RP Seiler Bus to NL Seiler Bus, effective 8/3/19.
Board members, any questions? Okay, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Board members, I need a motion for the approval of the comprehensive maintenance plan for educational facilities.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kyler. Dr. Lockhart.
Okay, board members, this comprehensive maintenance plan for educational facilities was presented to you at the last board meeting, and we are required to develop the comprehensive maintenance plan, which describes the strategy for maintaining our school facilities. It is to be approved annually by our Board of Education and submitted then to the state for review. So it is here, unchanged from the first submission, for your approval.
Ms. Herbert.
All right, I do have some questions. It says building supervisors preventive maintenance. We check all these things we do. We check temperatures, we lubricate, we check on cooling towers. Who checks the facade on these buildings? I mean, who checks the brick because of what has happened to Westminster High School? I mean, who found this, or should we have found that early, or what's? I know we check a lot of things, but
Well, that's obviously not something that's on that sort of a checklist.
Okay.
And that was discovered by observation as the mortar that was found on the grassy areas led us to do the investigations. It's an unusual situation that we have, but certainly we could, some of the things we wanted to add to the checklists have to do with the exterior, of the building, not anything quite as dramatic as we're seeing with the masonry.
Right,
More like things that we would find some sidewalks that may heave, for instance,
Yes.
or caulking that has to be accomplished so you don't get the heaving. Those sorts of things we do want to add to the preventive maintenance list.
okay, I just think, you know, since this is going to cost us a lot of money, maybe we need to do some kind of preventative, or somebody be checking this more seriously. I know not every school has the same type of facade, or whatever you call that white stuff. It's not red brick at that school. So I just, you know, I don't want to have another horrible bill.
Yeah, and I can't guarantee we won't.
I know, but I just think somebody needs to be looking at these exteriors of the buildings.
It
So,
is something we can add in. I know,
Right.
you know,
It's
especially
in there,
water
but
infiltration,
I think it needs to definitely needs to be done on a yearly basis. That needs to be checked.
And we do intend, actually, of making some improvements with our inspection plans. We're going
Okay.
to automate that by moving it into our work order system, and what it's going to do is it's going to generate these inspections to the building supervisor so they can accomplish that. We're not going to depend on the paper. So hopefully we're using some of that, some of the things we've already invested in, some of the applications we've invested in. So hope to make some improvements in those areas.
Okay, and I went through this, and like on section 6, page 3, what is a regular professional versus a professional? And it's $326,000. I'm not quite sure what that is.
I'm sorry, that was section
Section 6, page 3.
page 3.
It says regular classified, classified eds, and then it says regular professionals. What is that?
That's under, I might need some help on the
It's
designation
on
for salary.
section 6, page 3, maintenance of plant.
Right. Right. It's the salaries and wages. That's a classification for employees.
It's just a regular professional, okay.
I'm not sure how that.
So
the
is that like
definition
a
for regular-
painter or somebody that works on trucks, or?
Regular.
Okay, that would be the actual administrators for the plant, plant
Okay.
maintenance. Not any of the maintenance folks themselves, but the actual
Okay, I did- because
supervisor,
it-
yes.
Because it had regular classified, then professional classified, so, okay, don't go anywhere. What are, under contracted services, what are other contracted services, like for $63,000? What would that be for? Like people spraying, or?
Okay, the accounting definition is anything that's not that we don't have a specific definition for is included in others. So,
Okay.
so it would be a contracted service that did not fit one of the very specific definitions that we have. From in the maintenance perspective, it's going to be some kind of a service that we go out that our staff, our internal staff, does not handle. It's something that we would bring somebody else externally in to handle, whether it's some kind of an inspection or service.
All right. What is sensitive items down there?
Okay, sensitive items. A sensitive item is an item that, for inventory purposes, we're concerned that it's something that could be easily stolen. So
Excuse me, I want to
yeah,
say something.
Sure.
I'm not doing this for the heck of it, but I don't appreciate people in the crowd making fun. I'm telling you right now, I'm asking specific questions, and I want answers, and it's not you. So let's go on.
Oh, sure. We were in sensitive items.
Yes.
Sensitive items, IT. The other thing that's in the maintenance area, it would be any type of equipment that would be easily pilfered. It would be, so we try to, that has a high value but is a smaller item. So it could be like a smaller piece of equipment that someone could use at their home. But, you know, maybe like a, smaller type of piece of equipment that we would want to inventory so it's not, so we keep track of it so it's not stolen, taken by a worker.
All right. And does, like, the person that's in charge of the boilers, now he goes to conferences or has to go to training every year?
Well,
I mean, how do you keep everybody up on all the latest information? Like, does he, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Who goes to conferences and who goes to trainings and that kind of thing? Or they don't have to go every year, or who goes?
It's not, it depends on the, trade, it depends on what it is we're asking them to do. So for instance, our safety coordinator is regularly updated and trained regarding, asbestos, lead, those sorts of things. Our building supervisors, we just finished, I guess, from my perspective, just finished about a year ago, I suppose, 18 months of coursework at Carroll Community College. We developed a program for the building supervisors so they could learn trade information regarding HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, basic safety. We also trained them in computer use, a couple of courses in computer use, and also management, dealing with difficult coworkers, observation, and what's the word I'm looking for? Review and evaluation, those sorts of things. So, and that took us about 18 months to do the 40 building supervisors. We have been looking at how we could go a little bit deeper with the custodial staff to involve them in more training. That's be a much larger obligation, and we might be have to be more targeted in how we do that, but that's still in discussion. The program we did with Carroll Community was the first time we've done any sort of training, comprehensive training for the building supervisors. Again, so it's a technical and also their administrative, making improvements with that way. But there are opportunities and out there. It may not be boiler specific, but there are opportunities.
I just thought of that because that's one person. That's only one person, and we have to keep up to date on those kind of things.
Yes, but we do have a lot of support on those critical systems too. Our MABE insurance carrier does an inspection. The state has boiler inspectors. So those sorts of critical items, there's backup and support. We also, of course, have our own technicians too. And so it depends on what's being offered and who we have in the system that might need that sort of training. But it is offered. So we do it and we encourage it.
Okay.
Ms. Herbert, could I ask? We do need to take a short break for technical purposes. So can we hold those thoughts, and we'll take a 10-minute recess and reconvene at 8:05. Okay? All right. Thank you, board members.